Chapter 19. Behind the Walls. Boys' Rec Room. "Do you have a flashlight I could borrow?" Justin asked Kyle as Friday night rolled around. "Yeah, why?" Kyle asked, turning to face him. "Eliza challenged me to a flashlight duel." Justin lied. "What's a flashlight duel?" Kyle asked, suddenly looking very intrigued. "I don't know," Justin shrugged. "But if you find out, let me know. I'm hoping to win." Noon, the next day. Justin waited by the kitchen doors for Marta. Turns out, if you know the right person, you can get the good snacks, the kind of snacks meant for teachers. Because the teachers didn't eat many snacks, some of the kitchen staff were willing to sneak the discarded treats to the kids. The only person who didn't want the students to have the snacks was the head chef, Stephen, since it was his job to make sure that the students didn't get to them. But he was nice enough to pretend not to know the kitchen staff had been raiding the cupboard. "Here you go, hun," Marta said as she emerged from behind the kitchen doors. "I've got chips, waters, and a couple of candy bars." "Thanks, Marta," Justin said, shoving the snacks into his bag. "No problem." She gave him a wink. "Have fun on your picnic." Library, 1 p.m. "You got the stuff?" Simon asked as Justin entered the library. "Yeah." Justin held up his bag. "Do you have the other stuff?" "Yes. Now can we please stop talking like this?" Eliza faked a groan. "Sure, okay," the boys laughed. "Great," she sighed. "Let's get going." Eliza led the way to the back of the library, settled onto the floor in front of the shelves, and put her hand over the panel. She paused before pressing the panel into the shelf. "Ready?" she asked. "Yep." Justin gave her a nod as he formed a small force field over his hands. "Okay." She took a deep breath and opened the passageway. Justin gawked at the shelves one more time as his friends entered the passages. The entrance was low enough not to be seen if you were behind any of the other bookshelves, and the mechanisms in them were quiet enough that they didn't draw any attention from anyone else in the room. "Do you think we should check this room for another passage?" Simon asked as they stood. "Why?" Justin asked. "I don't think the passages would be in one straight path," Simon explained. "It's more likely to be a series of interconnected rooms with entrances and exits in different places." "What makes you think that?" Eliza asked. "Well, if all the hidden rooms were in the same place on each floor, someone would notice a pattern in the amount of space unaccounted for." Simon shrugged. "It makes more sense to have the rooms more spread out, with one room having multiple entrances and exits to passageways. That way, it's less likely that all the rooms would be discovered." He pulled a notebook out of his backpack. "What's that for?" Justin asked as Simon opened to the first page. "Making a rough draft of the map of Capes." He turned the pages towards them so they could see the pencil sketches he'd made. "I want to try and sketch where each room is hidden." "Smart." Eliza gave him a smile. Simon blushed slightly and mumbled thanks. "Okay, so do we search this room first?" Eliza asked. "I'll take the wall with the hallway," Justin offered. "I'll search the back wall," Eliza said. Simon stopped. "Okay." The hardest part about searching for an invisible panel was, aside from the invisible part, the fact that you couldn't feel the panel itself, only the braille-like indicators that told you that the panel was there. "Aha!" cried Eliza after 3 minutes of searching. The panel was by the corner between the back wall and the hallway. It sank into the wall with a soft click, like the pushing of a shutter button on a camera, as a lever popped out of its hiding spot. "Simon, you can do the honors," Eliza suggested. "Justin, you're on defense." "Right." He focused on the area around them and formed a shield. It was pale blue and had a couple of holes, but Justin narrowed his focus and fixed them. "Cool," Eliza nodded, studying the shield. "I'm on offense." Simon pulled the lever and a small square opening appeared above them. "Eliza, how about you go first?" Justin extended his shield to allow them to enter the room above. "Then Simon, I'll try to cover you from down here." Eliza gave a quick nod, tried her grip on the footholds, and scaled the wall. Justin made sure the shield covered her as Simon tucked his notebook into his bag and followed her slowly, as if he were afraid to fall. Justin took another deep breath, continuing to concentrate on the force field, and carefully made his way upstairs, weakening the area of the shield around him to better protect the room above. The first thing Justin noticed when he emerged from the trapdoor was how small of a space his shield encapsulated them in. "Sorry," he muttered, extending his shield to cover the length of the room. "Shh," Eliza whispered, her ear pressed against the wall. "We're behind the gaming nook," Simon explained. "We're trying to figure out if they can hear us." "Ah," Justin said in a hushed tone. "I don't hear anything," Eliza whispered. They might be between rounds, Simon explained. Rounds? Eliza frowned. Of the game? Oh. There were muffled yells on the other side of the wall. So if we yell, they can hear us, Justin observed. So we can't get mad at each other while in the tunnels, Eliza smirked playfully. We can't be irrationally loud, Simon corrected. Tomato potato, she shrugged. Mad people are irrational people. Do you think that this is the only room on this floor? Justin asked, noticing that there was no visible hallway on this floor. There might be another one, Simon frowned, but the entrance might not be on this floor. Okay, Eliza agreed. So how about we check this room for levers and move on? She turned and started examining the walls. The boys quickly followed her example. Here, Justin called, as soon as he met friction beneath his fingers. There was another trap door above their heads. Eliza made her way up first. Whoa, came her voice from above them. What? Simon quietly called upstairs. It's really big up here, she said, poking her head through the trapdoor. Come see. Whoa, Justin gaped as he entered the room. It's got to be the length of the entire floor, Simon said giddily. Except for the stairwell. Justin scrunched up his eyebrows, trying to compare the sizes in his head. Eliza held up a hand for them to be quiet and put her ear to the wall. I think they're watching a movie, she announced. I can hear noise from the projector. Should we check for other exits? Justin asked. Just in case? Probably, Eliza shrugged. After 10 minutes of searching, they finally found an exit that led out by the stairwell, with a door that slowly merged with the wall, going completely unnoticed by anyone in the hall. They sealed both entrances, giving themselves a couple seconds head start in case someone tried to enter the room, and took a break to let Justin rest from forming the force field. You okay, Justin? Eliza asked. Justin nodded wearily and slouched on the floor. He could feel beads of sweat forming on his forehead, but he hadn't started glitching yet, so he decided he was fine. Anybody want snacks? 10 minutes later. We should keep searching, Eliza eventually said, shoving her empty chip bag into her pocket and rising to her feet. Yeah, Justin nodded, feeling shaky but determined. Are you sure you're okay? Eliza asked, helping him stand as Simon relocated the lever. I'm fine, just a little drained. Okay, Eliza frowned. The three made their way back downstairs with Eliza in the lead, opening the trapdoors. Simon took up the rear, adding to his sketches whenever he could. After making their way past the library down to the first floor, they stared in shock at... A tunnel? Eliza said, staring at the opening in the ground, perplexed. Should we see where it goes? Justin asked, peering down the dark pathway in front of them. Well, we have flashlights, Simon shrugged. Right. Eliza pulled her flashlight out of her pocket. The tunnel lit up from the single beam of light. Eliza pointed the beam towards the ceiling as they descended into the ground. Huh, no overhead lights, Eliza remarked. Justin nodded, trying to steady his breathing as the darkness sealed them in. It's not really a tunnel, Justin told himself. It's more of a long room. In fact, the walls were the same color as the other passages, and the floor was the same tile pattern. The only real difference was the lack of light. Justin and Simon followed Eliza through the tunnel, which eventually slanted upwards until it merged into another secret room. Do you think we're in the main building? Eliza asked as Justin sealed off the tunnel with his shield. Probably. Simon crouched down and started sketching a map of the school grounds, though the hard part will be figuring out where in the building we are. Chapter 20. After further investigation. Turns out the secret room was behind 102, 104, and 108, and part of the girls' bathroom. I wondered why there was this weird wall here, Eliza nodded, closing the entrance to the bathroom. Justin discovered the second lever around the middle of the room. Another tunnel, he said, staring at the stairs that descended into the floor. Guys, Simon said, drawing their attention to a third lever. A tug on the lever on the other end of the hall revealed a trap door leading upwards. Tunnel or ladder first? Eliza asked. Let's search upstairs first, Justin said. That way we don't have to come back if we find another exit. 30 minutes later. The second and third floor had long, jagged halls that covered the length of the front part of the building with a small room on each end. They both had entrances and supply closets. The fourth floor had one small room with another entrance and a supply closet. Despite searching the whole building, they hadn't seen any evidence that someone else had been in the tunnels. In fact, the passages were so dusty they looked as if they hadn't been used in decades. After taking another break, Justin followed Eliza and Simon back onto the ground and blinked in surprise when he saw 3 more tunnels. Okay, so that one must lead to the girls' dorm, Eliza said, pointing to the tunnel to her right, and that one to the boys' dorm. She pointed to the left tunnel. The question is, where does that one lead? Probably somewhere off campus, Simon shrugged. Well, let's explore that one first then, Justin said, switching on his flashlight. If Black Glycerin is hiding here, wouldn't he want to be closer to the exit? I would, Eliza nodded. Justin tried to strengthen his shield, but was only able to fill a couple of the holes. He bit his lip, but didn't say anything. The shield, like Justin, was growing weaker. End of the tunnel. I don't see anything up ahead, Simon said from up front. I think it's a dead end. As they came upon the end of the passageway, they were met by 2 more tunnels, one on each side, stretching at an angle backwards towards where they came from. Eliza stepped in front of Simon and started searching the walls. Do you think there's an exit here? Justin asked as she continued to feel the wall. I know there's an exit here. She pushed the secret panel into the wall. We didn't walk that far, Simon frowned. I don't think we're off campus. Eliza shrugged, hand on the lever. Shall I? She asked, giving them a mischievous smile. Wait, Justin said, blocking the lever with his hand. We need a plan. We have a plan, she shrugged. Explore. What if the exit lets out into broad daylight? Justin said, swatting her hand away from the lever. We could be spotted. You're right. Simon nodded, contemplating their next move. I'll go. That way only one of us risks getting caught. I'll go up, figure out where we are, and come right back. What if you get spotted? Eliza fretted. Then I leave the tunnel. Simon stood straighter. Just make sure you seal the tunnel after me so no one else finds it and continue to search the tunnels. Justin wanted to argue, but decided against it when he saw the determined glare Simon had put on. He tried to replace the frown on his face with an encouraging smile, but was certain it looked more like a grimace. Good luck, he said as Eliza pulled the lever. Simon handed Justin his notebook. I'll be right back, he promised, climbing up towards the open sky that rose beyond the trapdoor. Justin peered so far upward that he could feel his neck begin to stiffen. Simon reached the top and cautiously poked his head out of the tunnel. Justin glanced at Eliza, who had her hand poised over the lever, ready to make sure their exit strategy was in play. Simon froze at the top, then began to climb back down the ladder. We're under the fountain, he said as Eliza closed the exit. The one on the right-hand side when you exit. The trapdoor is to the left of the fountain. It's an exit that gets you outside the security systems except for the main gate. The gate locks at 11, right? Justin asked. And reopens at 6, Simon nodded. So it's an escape route you can only use during certain times? Eliza cocked her head to the side. That seems kind of useless. You never know, it might come in handy, Justin shrugged. So, left or right? Simon asked, motioning to the 2 tunnels adjacent to them. Eliza shrugged as Justin handed the notebook back to Simon. Right? Justin offered. Sounds good, Eliza agreed, making her way down the tunnel. A little while later. After taking the long trek down the tunnel leading to the boys' dorm, they took another break to let Justin rest. Justin sank to the ground as Eliza and Simon kept their eyes on the exits that they'd left unopened. Eliza crouched next to Justin and started digging through his backpack. Here, she said, dropping a bag of chips in his lap. You need to eat. You're shaking. Justin nodded, noticing for the first time the tremor in his hands as he picked up the bag. Simon, he opened the bag. How many more tunnels do you think there are? 2 that we know of, Simon said as he studied his map. There should be the one that takes us from the room in the main building to the boys' dorm and the one that leads from the girls' dorm to the fountain. Okay, Justin sighed. Are you going to be okay? Eliza asked. Yeah, he nodded. I might just need to spend some time in the glitch room. Maybe we should explore them later, Simon fretted. No, Justin waved his concerns away. I'll be fine. Okay, Eliza stood, still frowning. Let's be quick, though. As they headed off and explored the tunnel leading to the girls' dorm, Justin started to feel his legs go numb. By the time they had merged in the secret room next to the girls' dorm, he was leaning heavily on Eliza. Thanks, he muttered, leaning against one of the walls. No problem. She tried not to look concerned, but Justin saw her eyes flicker towards him. You okay to search the other tunnel? Yeah, he nodded. I'll be fine. And then he passed out. Nurse's ward. Justin blinked as white light flooded his vision. Good, you're awake. Justin turned towards the voice and saw Martin, the nurse, standing nearby. How long was I out? Justin asked, sitting up. About 30 minutes since your friends brought you in. He reached forward and felt the pulse in Justin's wrist. Your heart rate slowed down a bit from the last time I checked it. That's a good sign. Can you tell me what happened? We, Liza, Simon, and I, were practicing for a flashlight duel, Justin fibbed, and I thought I could try to use a force field to help me win. I guess I overextended myself. Martin nodded. Did the shield help protect you from the light at all? He asked. Not really, but I kept hoping it would. That's probably how you overextended yourself. Martin picked a water bottle off the table next to the cot. Drink plenty of water and get some sleep. You'll be fine as long as you don't continue to overexert yourself. Justin took the water and stood. Thank you. Sure thing, the nurse nodded. Justin headed to leave but paused. There was a girl, a second year by Justin's guess, passed out on a cot. Her skin was tinted green as if she was suffering from seasickness. He heard footsteps coming his way and walked off towards the stairwell where he found Eliza waiting for him. You okay? She asked as she followed him downstairs. I think so, he shrugged. Can't tell yet. I told him I used the shield for a flashlight duel. Smart, Eliza nodded. Simon found a clue. What kind of clue? Well, we were exploring the last tunnel after we brought you up to the hospital ward, Eliza explained, and Simon noticed the floor in the tunnel wasn't as dusty, so we went back one passage and found a dusty footprint that wasn't ours. How do you know it wasn't ours? It was an adult-sized shoe print, Eliza said. Justin frowned. Why would an adult be in the passages? And why haven't we seen a sign of someone being in them before? If a teacher knew about the passages, they would have told Mr. Whitaker and the passages would be sealed off. It must be someone who doesn't want anyone to know about the passages. Someone could be using the tunnels to poison kids. Justin froze. What do we do to stop him? We can't tell anyone until we have substantial proof, Eliza shrugged. Otherwise, we lose credibility. So, what now? Justin asked. So we keep working on finding proof. Chapter 21. A Day with Papa Lanes. Justin and Simon? A teacher asked as the two exited the main building. Yeah, they answered. I'm Mr. Fields. I'll be your ride to Mr. Lanes' house today. He gave them a brilliant smile, displaying pearly white teeth. I have Eliza in my class, so I know her already. He faltered for a second, his eyes frowning as he continued to smile. Where is Miss Thistle? He asked. Justin felt Simon give him a worried glance. She had to use the bathroom, Justin said after a beat. Eliza was actually in the girls' dorm, grabbing a notebook. She was using the secret passages to get there from the main building because, in her words, living dangerously made her feel alive. Ah, Mr. Fields nodded. Just then, Eliza burst out of the building, leaving the doors rattling in her wake. Sorry I'm late, she gasped. It's okay, better to go now instead of having to go in the car, Mr. Fields said, smiling as he rummaged through his pockets for his keys. Eliza's brows dipped into a slight frown. Bathroom, Justin mouthed. She nodded. Okay, Mr. Fields said, pulling his keys out of one of his pockets. Car's out by the gate. Mr. Lanes' house. Martin Lanes opened the door with a grin so wide Justin thought his face would split into pieces. Hello, he sang. You must be Simon. He stuck out his hand for Simon to shake. I'm Mr. Lanes, but you can call me Martin or Papa or Justin's grandpa. He chuckled lightly. Justin tells me you're really smart. He released his hand. Do you play chess? No, sir, Simon said as they followed Mr. Lanes into the house. Well then, I'll have to teach you. He turned to Eliza. And you must be the powerful Eliza. I don't know about powerful, Eliza said humbly, but Justin noticed the twinkle in her eyes. I have a hunch you're more powerful than you let on, Mr. Lane said heartily. He turned to Justin. And I'm sorry, young man, I don't seem to remember your name, he frowned. Hi, Pop-Pop, Justin giggled. Hi, Justin. Mr. Lane smiled, wrapping Justin into a quick hug. How are you? Pretty good, Justin said as he sank onto the couch. Good, Mr. Lane smiled, settling himself onto his chair. So, what have you three hooligans been up to outside of classes? Justin cast a questioning glance to Simon and Eliza. We're in an art club, Simon offered. We've been doing watercolors, Eliza added. Ooh, Mr. Lane nodded thoughtfully. I've always wanted to try watercolors. Don't, Simon grimaced. It's really hard. It's only hard when you add too much water, Eliza said pointedly. Or if you're just bad at art, Justin joked. Sure, Simon laughed, giving Justin a cross-eyed look. So I was thinking, Mr. Lane said after the laughter died down, I'd take you three to the park this afternoon. After getting ice cream, of course. Of course, Eliza repeated as Simon let out a whoop. Until then, Mr. Lane continued, how about we play a round of dominoes? Sure, Justin said, jumping up to retrieve the box of dominoes from the hall closet. I haven't played dominoes in years, he heard Eliza say as he pulled the box off its shelf. I've never played, Simon said as Justin re-entered the room. It's pretty easy, Justin said, pulling the lid off the box and letting the pieces fall onto the coffee table with a pleasing chorus of clinking sounds. Everyone settled around the table as Mr. Lanes began to explain the rules of the game, with Justin chiming in with how they played at the Willow's house. Justin, to his own surprise and delight, won the first game. Eliza, to nobody's surprise, was good at the game despite it relying primarily on chance, and won the next 4 rounds. Gah! Mr. Lanes gave a fake deep-throated groan. Beaten again! I don't understand how you keep winning, Simon pouted. Are you hiding a stash of dominoes under the table? No, Eliza stood, showing the empty floor beneath her. I'm just a natural-born winner. One more round? Justin asked as Eliza plopped back down. I thought it was ice cream time, Simon suggested, his eyes glittering hopefully. Isn't it too early for ice cream? Eliza frowned. It's never too early for ice cream at my house, Mr. Lane said in a wise tone. So it's ice cream time? Simon asked, bouncing excitedly in his seat. It appears so, Mr. Lanes laughed. I'll go grab my wallet and keys and take you hoodlums to Mr. Frozen's. Should we tell him? Eliza asked in a hushed tone as Mr. Lanes disappeared into his room. About the prophecy? I don't know. Justin frowned. We could. What if you did and he told someone? A voice said in his head. What if he helps us find black glycerin? He argued. You could get in trouble with the teachers. We could end up in trouble without someone helping us. Eliza was watching him with a curious look on her face. It's not like the staff doesn't know about the prophecy, she rationalized. We shouldn't get into trouble unless we tell him about the passages in the footprint they'd found. Justin nodded. She's right, Simon agreed. It couldn't hurt to tell him. Okay then. Justin released a sigh of relief. Picnic table in Langford Park. Mr. Lanes, Eliza asked, pausing to stop a trail of ice cream from reaching her fingers. Did you hear about the prophecy? The one at Capes, Justin clarified. No, I don't think I have. Mr. Lanes lowered the hand that held his ice cream. At least, not in recent years. I doubt you're talking about the one from when I was in school. The what? Justin almost asked, but refrained. They needed to tell him about their prophecy first. No, this prophecy is from our orientation day, Simon said, awkwardly brushing some hair out of his face. Mr. Lanes's eyebrow twitched in surprise. Oh? He questioned. Justin looked down at his cup of ice cream, guilt flooding his chest. Crap, he thought. I should have told him last time I visited. How do y'all know about this prophecy? Mr. Lanes asked. We were there when it was delivered, Eliza said, feigning nonchalance as she bit into her cone. It was after the ceremony of powers, Justin disclosed. Mrs. Strong came in and looked, misty-eyed, Simon finished. Misty-eyed, Justin agreed. Then she just delivered the prophecy. Uh-huh. Mr. Lanes nodded, still frowning. And what did this prophecy say? It said that a villain is hiding at Capes. Justin leaned forward for dramatic effect, and that one of us would stop him. There were a couple seconds of silence. The only sounds came from Simon slurping the remnants of his ice cream. "So what are you three doing about it?" Mr. Lanes eventually asked. "Well," Eliza stopped, giving Justin a hesitant glance. "We're trying to find him." "Because," Justin rushed to add, "no one on staff has bothered to." "How do you know that?" Mr. Lanes asked. "They wouldn't tell the students if they were doing an investigation." "Mrs. Strong has a daughter, Amber," Eliza shrugged, "and kids don't keep secrets. Mrs. Strong would have told Amber. Amber is the one who told us the prophecy was real." Justin held his breath as Mr. Lanes pondered his response, preparing for a rebuke. "As proud as it makes me when I hear that y'all are doing what you think is honorable," Mr. Lanes stirred his melted ice cream in his cup, "you three need to promise me that if you find trouble, you'll run the other way and tell an adult." "Of course," Simon nodded seriously. Eliza frowned, but agreed. Mr. Lanes looked Justin in the eyes. "Crap," Justin thought. "If you can read my mind, I'm sorry. I'll try and stay out of trouble, I promise." "Justin?" Mr. Lanes asked. "Whew," Justin thought before replying. "I promise I'll try and stay out of trouble." "Good." Mr. Lanes turned to gaze at all three of them. "Just because you're children doesn't mean you're safe. It's good for you to learn that now rather than later." Mr. Lane's hardened stare softened as he noticed the frightened look on Simon's face. "Play it as safe as you can," Mr. Lanes advised, adding a lighter tone to his voice. "Try and stay out of trouble, and trouble won't come for you. If there's any trouble, tell an adult you can trust. Now, anything else you need to tell me about?" Simon gave another frightened look to Justin and Eliza. "Well, some people think someone's poisoning the food," Eliza said, chewing on her bottom lip. "Why?" Mr. Lane seemed startled. "A couple of students have passed out during meals," Simon explained. "One of the older students said he overheard someone say they had been poisoned." "So there's no substantial evidence," Mr. Lane said, his eyes betraying his obvious relief. "It's just a rumor." "But rumors can be based in fact," Justin countered, remembering Marta telling him they'd been testing the food. "And people will believe them even if they're not," Mr. Lanes reasoned. He let out a heavy sigh. "Don't worry about something that might be false until you have proof that it's real. You're kids. You shouldn't have to worry about things like this." An hour later. "Do you think we shouldn't have told him?" Justin fretted. "About the rumors?" "He won't tell anyone," Eliza said confidently. "Yeah, he has no reason to tell anyone," Simon agreed. "No, I mean that I read his mind and he wasn't thinking about telling Mr. Whitaker or anything," Eliza explained. "We can trust him." Justin smiled to himself. "So it was a good idea," he said, more to himself than to his friends. "Getting ice cream was a good idea." Simon rubbed his stomach. "I think your grandpa might be my new favorite person." Chapter 22. Listening Through the Walls. "One more time," Mr. Wire said. Justin jumped up and down, letting his limbs fly willy-nilly. First period wasn't even over yet, and he and the entire class were exhausted. To Justin's left, Eliza was rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Ready, Miss Thistle?" Mr. Wire asked. "Aye, aye," Eliza smirked, giving a fake salute. "Okay, everyone, line up." Justin gave Eliza a thumbs up as he stepped back into his spot in line. "And 3, 2, 1, go!" Justin decided at that moment that obstacle course day was his favorite. Obstacle course day came once a semester as a day to challenge what students had learned in class so far. Other than being drenched in sweat before 10 in the morning, it was perfect. Eliza levitated a small rainbow-colored ball into the air, all of her attention on Justin, who gave her a small, curt nod. Her questioning look turned into a smirk. With the smallest flick of her wrist, Eliza sent the ball hurling towards Justin. As fast as he could, Justin clapped his hands together and pulled them apart as a portal expanded between them. The ball disappeared into the portal, and the second it did, Justin got rid of his first portal and made another one over Clara. Clara, somehow caught off guard, was almost hit in the head, but managed to open a portal and send the ball towards Zechariah, who sent it towards Catherine. The ball made its way back and forth down the line before ending up in Flora's hands. Eliza ran between the two lines and tagged Abigail, who repeated the course and tagged Luke. After a couple people who only had telekinesis had run the course, it was Justin's turn. He stretched out his hand, poised to run as Bailey ran towards him. She came to a stop beside him and high-fived his hand. Justin tossed the ball in the air and sent it soaring towards Clara. He watched, poised on the balls of his feet as the ball zapped from portal to portal. Justin started running the second the ball got to Patrick. "Go, Justin!" he heard Bailey cheer from behind him. He was beaming when he reached the end of the row. Flora opened the portal above his head, letting the ball spiral towards him. Justin levitated the ball as he tagged Patrick, taking his spot in line as he continued the course. 14 minutes, Mr. Wire said as Holly finished the entire course. "Well done. That will be the time to beat for next semester's obstacle course, and I'm pretty sure it's the best score a first-year class has gotten." As the class burst into applause, Justin turned to Eliza and gave her a thumbs up before turning to find Simon. Instead of finding Simon, he made eye contact with Bailey, who blushed and gave him a small wave. Justin blinked and waved back. "Huh," Justin thought as Simon walked towards him. "That was okay," Mr. Wire said, interrupting Justin's thought. "Off to your next class." "But the bell hasn't rung," Luke frowned. "Yes, but you've got more obstacle courses to do," Mr. Wire said, corralling them out of the room, "and you might want to see what's in store for you." "He's up to something," Eliza whispered to Justin as they headed downstairs. "How do you know?" Justin whispered back. "I read it in his thoughts. He was trying to cover his thoughts. I think something bad happened." Lunch. "You're wrong!" Annie insisted, shaking the table as she slammed her fists on its surface. "Captain Cosmo was way better when Caroline Winters had the title." "No, no, no," Marianne said, shaking her head, sending her red curls flying. "Robert Calvin had more powers, and he defeated the Vorpit King." "So?" Annie yelled. "Caroline Winters had more control over her powers and defeated more villains. Plus, Robert Calvin only defeated the Vorpit King with the help of Scarlet Lynx." "Annie, you're yelling," Kyle said, rolling his eyes. "So?" Annie said, turning to face her twin. She was cut off by yells from the other side of the room. Justin was on his feet before the teachers made it to the victim. "Everyone relax," Mr. Wayne yelled to the crowd. "She's just fainted." Stephanie, who was taking her turn waiting in the cafeteria in case something like this happened, helped a third year stand to her feet. Martin, dressed in bright blue scrubs, shined a light in the girl's eyes and said something inaudible to Stephanie. She started to lead her out of the room when gasps sounded from behind Justin. "We have another fainter!" called one of Terrence's friends, Peyton. He bent down and helped up a brunette boy. Martin rushed over and helped Peyton carry him out of the building. "Everyone stay where you are!" Louisa, the head of the kitchen staff, yelled. "Don't eat anything!" Justin turned to Eliza and Simon. "Oh no," Eliza muttered. "Poison," Justin whispered. Room 309, Force Fields. "Attention students," Mr. Whitaker's voice called out through the PA system. "Despite the incidents that occurred during lunch today, there is no need to worry. The students who passed out had extreme allergic reactions and will be fine. Enjoy the rest of obstacle course day, and remember, vous êtes la surveillance." "What does that mean?" Luke frowned. "You've made it this far," Marianne translated. "Ominous," one of the girls frowned. "Let's get started," Miss Drills said, chewing on her lip. "Does she seem fidgety to you?" Bailey whispered from beside Justin. "Yeah," Justin nodded. "A little bit." "Weird." Bailey frowned as Miss Drills began to explain how the course worked. "Mr. Wire was acting strange, too." "He was," Justin agreed, remembering what Eliza had told him about Mr. Wire trying to cover his thoughts. "What's made everyone so jumpy?" Bailey wondered aloud. "I wish I knew," Justin said mournfully. "Okay," Miss Drills gave them a painfully forced smile. "Any questions about the course?" End of 7th period. Everyone anxiously broke out of room 309 as soon as the bell rang. The teachers' anxieties had begun to spread to the students, settling throughout the school like a fever of stress. "Well, that was a fun course," Bailey said, feigning optimism. "Yeah," Kyle agreed. "I just wish that He was cut off as someone bumped him on the stairwell. "Sorry," the guy muttered, hurrying past them. "You're good," Kyle said. "I just wish Miss Drills hadn't made us make so many shields. I never want to make another shield." "Fair enough," Bailey shrugged as they entered the Spanish room. "Hola, clase!" Miss Nunez smiled as they entered the room. Justin frowned. Miss Nunez was generally well put together, but today her hair was frizzy and she looked as if she hadn't slept the night before. And despite the smile she gave them, Justin couldn't help but get the feeling that she was as on edge as the rest of the teachers were. What on earth is stressing them out? October 31st. Ready? Simon called through the bathroom door. Yep, Justin said, adjusting his mask. Simon flung open the door and let Justin step out. Ta-da! Simon sang, arms held out to show off his superhero costume, complete with a mask, cape, and foam abs. Nice, Justin smiled, giving Simon a pair of thumbs ups. But aren't we already superheroes? Justin thought to himself. And you're a ninja! Simon gave Justin's outfit an approving nod. Awesome! Thank you. Justin gave him a curt nod before launching into a series of kicks, jumps, and punches. Wonderful demonstration, Justin, Mr. Franklin said. Justin turned to see Mr. Franklin's and the rest of the first-year boys waiting in the hall. Mr. Franklin's, one of the party's chaperones, was dressed in a costume of all green. What are you supposed to be? Luke, who was dressed as a cowboy, laughed. Pajama man? I'm a ninja, Justin said through gritted teeth. What are you supposed to be, spokesman for faux leather? I'm a cowboy, Luke said, aiming his silver-painted plastic gun at Justin. No aiming weapons at other students, Mr. Franklin's warned, or you'll have to stay here while the rest of us go to the party. Luke lowered his gun as his eyes widened to the size of golf balls. It was just a joke, he rushed to say. I wasn't going to shoot him. But your toy gun could have gone off on accident, and Justin could have gotten hurt, Mr. Franklin's countered. Just don't point it at anyone, okay? Okay. Good. Now let's get to the party. With that, he gave a flourish of his lime green cloak and led them out of the dorms. The auditorium. Like any school that has a Halloween party, though the Cape staff insisted it was just a costume party, the decoration committee had covered the walls with orange, purple, green, and black streamers, placed rubber spiders and web-like gauze and hung them in the doorways, and placed miscellaneous pieces of plastic skeletons on the tables. Justin! Simon! Eliza called as they entered the auditorium. She waved them over to where she, Annie, and Marianne were sitting. Nice costumes, she said as they approached the table. You guys look cool. Thanks, Simon said, his cheeks growing pink beneath his mask. You're dressed as a witch? Justin said, eyeing her pointed hat. Yep, Eliza nodded. The only thing I could think of to make my parents mad. Why would you want to make your parents mad? Simon frowned. Eliza eyed him warily. Because, she shrugged. She turned to Marianne, who was dressed in a koala onesie. Do they have cupcakes? Yeah. Marianne nodded, causing the fuzzy ears of her onesie to flop over. The kind that have rings in the frosting. Awesome, Eliza said, turning back to Justin. Want to go grab one with me? Sure, Justin shrugged. Cool. She turned to Simon. We'll be right back. Justin followed her into the mass of arriving third years, giving a perplexed Simon a shrug as they disappeared into the crowd. So, why a ninja? Eliza asked, joining the line of the refreshments table. I don't know. It seemed cool. Justin paused behind her in line. Why a witch? 'Cause my stupid parents would hate it, Eliza said vaguely. Not that they know. They only sent enough money for Marian's costume. She wanted to be some roller derby girl, and skates don't come cheap. Then how'd you get your costume? Justin frowned. My aunt paid for it. She dodged a kid in a construction worker's costume as he ran through the crowd. The one in Capsburg? Justin asked, proud to have recalled the tidbit she'd shared with him on orientation day. That's the one. Eliza smiled fondly. Ah, Justin nodded. Are you too close? Kind of. She stepped forward with a line, eyeing the goodies laid out on the table. I see her more than my other relatives, and she's nice. But, Justin prompted. But I don't feel like we're close, she sighed. It's not her fault. It's just I only see her twice, maybe 3 times a year. I only see my aunts and uncles once every other year. Justin grabbed one of the paper plates and began piling goods on top of it. Not sure if that's because I grew up with the Willowses or my family's just like that. Eliza nodded, grabbing a cupcake that had a ghost ring stuck in the orange frosting. Eliza! A voice called, cutting through the growing noise. Bailey, dressed as a princess, made her way towards them. I love your dress, Bailey gushed as she reached them. She glanced at Justin and frowned slightly. Justin? Yeah, he said, pulling his mask up. Hi, she squeaked. Nice ninja costume. Thanks, I like your princess crown. That's from the series about the dragon catchers, right? Eliza asked. Right, Bailey beamed. She's got a cute smile, Justin thought, pulling his mask back down to cover his blush. I'm gonna go find Simon, he said, making his way back towards the table. However, before he could get far, he spotted a familiar face in the crowd. "Terrence!" he called to his brother, who was dressed as what Justin could only guess was supposed to be a bodyguard. "Justin!" His brother walked over to him, an easy smile stretched lazily across his face. "Nice costume." "Thanks," Justin said, surprised by the compliment. "Jason!" Matt yelled, grabbing him from behind. "How's my bro doing?" "It's Justin, Matt," Peyton corrected, stepping forward to stand next to Terrence. He gave Justin an apologetic look as he tugged on the collar of his paint-covered shirt. Pretty sure it's Jason," Matt said, releasing Justin from his grip. "It's not." Terrence rolled his eyes. Whatever you say," Matt laughed, grabbing a nearby girl by the waist. Terrence," Justin said, trying to ignore the girl's peals of laughter. "Are you coming home for Thanksgiving?" "Not sure yet," his brother shrugged. "Man, you never visit your folks." Peyton shook his head. "You should go. You know they miss you." "I visit for Christmas," Terrence said defensively. "For 3 days," Justin pointed out. "Then you spend the rest of the break at Matt's place," Peyton nodded. "You should visit home for the whole break." "I might," Terrence said, glaring at his friend. "I've got to go find my friend," Justin said, hoping to escape before things got more awkward. "I'll see you later." "See you around, little man," Peyton nodded. Terrence didn't say anything. An hour later. Dancing in a ninja mask makes you really sweaty really quick. Justin, however, was stubborn enough to keep the mask on a full hour before giving in to the fact that the mask was soaked. "I'll be right back," he said to Simon before rushing out of the auditorium, down the hall, and into the boys' bathroom. Justin pulled off his mask and gloves and turned on the tap. "Any news?" a voice said through the walls. "Nothing," replied a second, a woman based on the pitch. Justin carefully turned off the tap and dried his face with a paper towel. "Well, something needs to be done," the first person said. "Students are getting ill and we can't keep blaming it on allergies." "It's being handled," the woman reminded him. "But the culprit won't be caught this way," the man said angrily. Something about the way he pronounced caught reminded Justin of someone. "But they won't be able to harm any more students once the new security measures are in place." "If it is black glycerin, the new security measures won't matter." "Mr. Crane," Justin realized. Mr. Crane often pronounced the T in words with a soft tuh. "Lower your voice," the woman said sternly. "One of the students might hear you." Justin left as fast as he could, with only one thought in his mind. The teachers think it's him. Chapter 23. Thanksgiving Break. "Do you hear anything?" Simon asked. "Not yet," Justin replied. "I don't think the meeting has started yet," Eliza whispered. "They're just chatting." "It's 11:37. They should have started by now," Simon frowned. "Wait," Eliza whispered. "I hear something." Yesterday, Friday, Amber had gone into Eliza's minds class to relay a message to Mr. Fields. Eliza, wanting to get to the bottom of things, had read Mr. Fields' mind. "He's pretty good at ESP blocking," Eliza had told them when they'd met in the library that afternoon. "But I was able to hear 2 key pieces of information when he let his guard down. Tomorrow at 11:30, Mr. Whitaker's office." Justin pressed his ear to the wall of the hallway. "Mr. Franklin's nice of you to join us," Mr. Whitaker said, his voice only slightly muffled by the wall. "Sorry I'm late," Mr. Franklin's apologized. "One of my students needed some help understanding the material that will be on the exam, so I was taking some time to explain it to him." "Eric, could you please tell us what we're doing here?" a female voice said. "Of course, Miranda," Mr. Whitaker replied. "We've received another note." There were incoherent murmurs and groans from the teachers. "What does this one say?" said a low voice. "Dear Mr. Whitaker and the teachers of Capes," Mr. Whitaker read. "Your school has been the first of many that will be targeted. Now that I've seen how poorly you've responded to my attacks, I'm forced to up my game. Your new security measures will do nothing to stop me, though they may at first delay my process. I will soon expose your school's," Mr. Whitaker faltered, "poor ways of keeping things under wraps to the public. Chaos will reign once again." "They once again failed to sign it," Mr. Whitaker sighed. "What are we going to do?" Mr. Crane asked in his croaky voice. Without being able to see the elderly man, Justin couldn't help but picture him as a frog. "There may be nothing we can do," Miss Nunez said. "Well, there has to be something," Miss Andromeda argued. "We've kept an eye on the gate, we've upped the security for the kitchens, and we've searched the entire campus," a male voice reminded her. "What more can we do?" "Mrs. Strong," Mr. Whitaker said, interrupting Miss Andromeda's reply, Do you have anything to add? The room was silent. Justin held his breath, waiting for the reply. I think, Mrs. Strong's soft voice said, barely audible through the wall, that there is disaster ahead. However, there is a chance it'll end well. Did you have a vision? Mr. Franklin's asked. Just glimpses, Mrs. Strong said evasively. If any of you catch sight of anyone unfamiliar or anything suspicious, let me know immediately, Mr. Whitaker said. We need to get to the bottom of this before it gets any worse. Justin, Eliza said, breaking his attention away from the conversation. We need to go. Justin gave a shaky nod and followed her and Simon to the stairwell. After escaping to the gardens, Justin began to speculate about what they'd heard. If the teachers are the only ones who are supposed to know about the security changes, Justin wondered aloud, does that mean that Black Glycerin is one of them? Oh, not necessarily, Simon shrugged, picking one of the leaves off of the tree. It could be one of the other staff. Technically, Eliza added, it might not be any of the staff. He could have overheard it if he's living in the tunnels. We saw no signs of someone living down there, Simon argued. Just a footprint, meaning he's most likely using the tunnel but not staying there. Justin nodded. What do you think the first note said? He asked. It might have been a ransom note, Simon suggested. The second note almost made it seem like he had asked for something. Could be, Eliza ceded. But if that's true, what does he want? A week later. As the cool weather came, so did the pumpkin spice-flavored things in the cafeteria. The kitchen served pumpkin spice-flavored coffees, cereals, and cookies for the students to enjoy throughout the month of November. Despite the stricter searches of everything that came into the kitchen, more students were complaining of stomach pains and nausea. Although, whether that was because of poison or not, no one knew, because the medical staff was doing a good job keeping everything under wraps. Catherine went to the nurses today, Eliza announced, sitting down on one of the garden benches. Did she have symptoms or not? Simon asked, scribbling a note in his journal. Eliza shook her head. She says she felt sick, but I think she was just in her head about it. I'm pretty sure that's what most of the cases are. Simon nodded. Fear turns everyone into hypochondriacs. There was a pause between them. Are you guys heading home over break? Simon asked. Yeah, Justin smiled, gazing at the dead leaves and evergreens surrounding them. I get 6 days with my god family, then 2 with Pop Pop. Nice. Simon nodded appreciatively. I leave Monday and get back Saturday. How about you, Eliza? Justin asked before she could pick any more petals off of the wilting flowers. I'm going to be gone Saturday to Saturday. Eliza grimaced, dropping a petal on the ground and grinding it under her foot. A whole week with my lovely family. On the bright side, I'll get to have my aunt's sweet potato casserole with candied pecans. Ooh, my mom always makes that with mini marshmallows, Simon said, smiling at the thought. But my favorite is mashed potatoes. You eat mashed potatoes on Thanksgiving? Eliza said incredulously. You don't? Justin laughed. Nope. Eliza held her head high. You're one of those people who likes pumpkin pie, aren't you? Justin joked. You don't like pumpkin pie? Eliza and Simon said in prime unison. It has a weird texture, Justin said defensively. Eliza laughed before glancing down at her Spanish worksheet. Do either of you remember the conjugation rules? You forgot the song already? Simon frowned. It's so easy. O, as, a, amos, an, Simon and Justin repeated. Nerds, Eliza smiled, copying down the endings. And for E, it's O, S, E, emos, N? Right, Simon nodded. Another week later. Justin! Will shouted, tackling him as he tried to enter the house. William! Mrs. Willows scolded as the 2 boys fell to the floor. Be gentle! Sorry, Will smiled at her mischievously as he stood up. It's fine, Ma, Justin reassured her, trapping Will in a headlock. Mrs. Willows rolled her eyes and smiled at the 2 of them. Let me go! Will grunted. Justin released him from his hold. Terrence! Justin turned to see a surprised Rose standing in the living room doorway. Hey, Ro, Terrence said, entering the house with a charlatan smile, much different from the one Justin remembered. How's it going? It's okay. Rose shrugged modestly. We won 8 of our 10 games, Will told them. We beat the Dover Dingoes, my mortal enemies. Like you have immortal enemies? Rose scoffed. What are they? Time? Space? Everyone laughed as Will tried to think of a retort. The next day. "So how's school?" Mr. Willows asked at breakfast. "Well, there's a supervillain going around poisoning students," Justin thought to himself. "Class, friends, anything?" Mrs. Willows prompted. "Class is okay," Justin shrugged. "None of my teachers seem to hate me, and I like my classes just fine." "Which one's your favorite?" Miss Willows asked, grabbing another piece of bacon. Telekinesis and portals," Justin thought. "Probably Spanish," he said, because in all honesty it was the easiest, and Miss Nunez was genuinely nice. "Terrence?" Mrs. Willows asked. Terrence shrugged, not looking up from his plate. "My karate classes aren't bad," he said broodingly. "You get to take karate?" Will asked. Terrence gave him a small smile. "Yeah, it's pretty cool," he said, his eyes sparkling the way Eliza's did when she talked about her little sisters. "The chick that teaches it is pretty bad." He faltered at Mr. Willow's glare. "Pretty cool." Rose rolled her eyes at Will's snickering. "Are you enjoying the kids in your grade?" Mrs. Willows asked, obviously wanting to distract her giggling children. "Made any friends?" "A couple," Justin nodded. "Most of the guys in my dorm are okay. I mostly hang out with my friends Eliza and Simon. They're both really cool." A part of Justin wished he could tell them about his and his friends' powers, but the rule Miss Ties made sure they knew was that under no circumstances do you tell a norm about your or anyone else's powers. "Wonderful," Mrs. Willows said, smiling politely. "Terrence, how are Matt, Peyton, and Chris?" Matt and Peyton are good," Terrence said, fixing her with a bored stare. "I haven't talked to Chris." "Why not?" Mrs. Willows frowned. "I thought you guys were good friends." "He kind of withdrew from the group when we split into smaller dorms," Terrence said bluntly, staring at his meatloaf. Justin recalled the group of chanting boys from his first night at Capes. What made him want to leave the group? Justin wondered. "So, what's it like having Terrence as a brother?" Ray Kindle's question rang in his head. Wednesday. Mrs. Willows had arranged a pre-Thanksgiving picnic at a local park with some of Justin's friends. The plan was to bring a potluck of snacks and let the children play for a couple hours before the parents had to head home to start prepping for Thanksgiving. "Sam!" Justin yelled, racing towards his friend. "Justin!" Sam said, waving him over to where he and their friend Franklin stood. "How have you been?" Justin panted. "Pretty good," Sam smiled. "Mr. Plumes was sick for 2 weeks and we had a sub." "He wouldn't stop talking about it," Franklin groaned. "So, how's life at your hoity-toity boarding school?" Sam asked in a bad British accent. "It's fine." Justin bit back a brag. "I've made a couple friends and the classes are okay." "Any of the teachers as bad as Mr. Plumes?" Franklin asked. "My history teacher, Mr. Crane, is kind of grumpy," Justin admitted. "And my science teacher hands out way too much homework." Sam and Franklin nodded sympathetically. Justin noticed the equipment at their feet. "Want to play some football?" he asked. "Yes!" Sam grabbed a football from the pile and ran as fast as he could in the other direction. "Go long!" Thanksgiving Day. "Terrence, could you cut these for me?" Mrs. Willows asked, holding out a knife and a peeled potato for him to take. "Sure, Ma," Terrence said, taking them from her. "Thank you," Mrs. Willows sighed, patting his cheek. "Rose, can you peel the rest of the potatoes?" She gestured towards the remaining 4 potatoes. "Mom," Rose groaned. "Please and thank you." Mrs. Willows turned to check the oven. "Come on, Ro." Terrence waved for her to join him at the counter. "When we finish, we can partake in our tradition of helping her make the pie. And eating the whipped cream," Rose smiled, hopping up from her seat at the table. "Justin," Mrs. Willows said, "could you watch the water in this pot and let me know when it's boiling?" "Yeah," he said, abandoning his math homework to stand by the stove. "Thank you, sweetie," she said, turning back to work on the stuffing. An hour and a half later, the stuffing was put in a bowl, the turkey basted, the potatoes mashed, the green beans strained, the sweet potato casserole and the rolls removed from the oven, the pies left to cool, and the cranberry sauce plopped from its cans with a satisfying slop sound. As soon as they finished saying grace, the mad dash to grab the best of the feast began. Justin, now eating the biggest roll, realized how much he'd missed the home-cooked meals. Sure, the food at Capes was good, but it wasn't the same as when Mr. and Mrs. Willows made it. "This is really good," Justin said between bites. "Thank you," Mrs. Willows smiled. "I couldn't have done it without you guys." "Yeah, you could have," Terrence laughed. "Mom, we can't cook," Rose shrugged. Speak for yourself, Mr. Willows said. I make a mean mac and cheese. And I can make brownies, Terrence said. You should make some before you leave, Rose said, accidentally flinging mashed potatoes at her brother. Hey, Will said, reloading his fork for retaliation. I'll try and make some for you before we leave, Terrence promised. Good, Rose smiled. That makes up for you abandoning us so early. We won't be gone long, Justin pointed out. We'll be right back for Christmas break. That's true, and then we get to stay for 2 more weeks, Terrence added, to Justin's surprise. He's not going to Matt's for Christmas break, Justin realized. Still, Rose grumbled, her lower lip protruding into a pout. Could have been worse, Justin shrugged. We could have left now and ended up missing family game nights. Sounds like a win-win to me, Will said, his mouth once again full of food. Either way, you guys leave. William, Mrs. Willows exclaimed. I'm kidding, Will protested. That night, Terrence and Rose won the first 3 games of game night. Mr. and Mrs. Willows won the next one, and Justin and Will won the last 2. All right, you two, Mr. Willows pointed at the twins. Off to bed. Aw, Dad, Rose pleaded. 10 more minutes? You're just jealous you didn't win, Dad, Will said. Not at all, Mr. Willows laughed. I just don't want 2 grumpy kids tomorrow, and you've got practice in the morning. As Rose and Will headed upstairs, Justin moved from the floor to the armchair, curling in a fetal position to get comfortable. Terrence stayed seated on the floor, muscles tensed like a cat sensing a storm brewing as he stared at the discarded napkins from their brownies. I've been meaning to ask, how was your summer, Terrence? Mrs. Willows asked. Terrence looked wary. Fine, he said softly. The Reynoldses let me accompany them to the beach for a week. You could have come with us on our beach trip, Mr. Willows said pointedly. Nathaniel, Mrs. Willows warned. I'm just saying he could have visited, Mr. Willows said, holding his hands up in surrender. Terrence glared at the carpet. Well, transportation has been a problem, Mrs. Willows said, but maybe next year. You know what? I'm going to bed, Terrence said abruptly. Mr. and Mrs. Willows watched in silence as he left the room. So, how's undercover life? Mrs. Willows asked Justin as Terrence's footsteps retreated upstairs. Good, Justin nodded. Apparently I'm pretty powerful. I have a rare ability. With your mother's talents, I'm not surprised. Mrs. Willows smiled fondly. Are you good at using any of them yet? Kind of, Justin shrugged, but I could be better. At least you're honest. Mrs. Willows nodded encouragingly. Yeah, Justin smiled. No matter how special I think I am, I have to remember that one of my friends is the smartest kid in our grade and the other is the most powerful, so I'm being humbled. Mr. and Mrs. Willows laughed. The next day, Mr. Lanes was waiting for them on the sidewalk when they stepped out of the phone booth. There's my 2 growing grandsons, he chuckled, pulling them into a hug. Hi, Pop. Justin smiled. Hey, Papa, Terrence said, pulling away from the hug to grab his bags. I know you 2 are probably full from yesterday's feast, Mr. Lane said, taking one of Terrence's bags from him. However, there's a diner I am dying to show you. They have amazing milkshakes. The dairy parlor. The dairy parlor looked like something right out of the 1950s. From its blue booths and checkerboard tiled floor to its dime-operated table jukebox, everything about the place screamed old school. However, you could tell it was a frequented and well-loved establishment from the cracks in the vinyl upholstery and the numbers that had been worn away on the mini jukeboxes. 2 strawberry milkshakes, 1 chocolate, their waitress said, placing their drinks on the table. A hamburger for you. She set the plate in front of Mr. Lanes. A chili dog for the young man and a grilled cheese for you. Let me know if you need anything else. She hummed along to the song playing overhead as she walked away, her blonde ponytail bobbing to the beat. Have you been to Captain before? Mr. Lanes asked Terrence. I've been on the weekends, but I've never come here, Terrence said between bites. Not many kids do. They probably think they can't afford it, Mr. Lanes said. Terrence's phone started buzzing. He picked up his phone and frowned. I've got to take this, he said, sliding out of the booth. So how's your search going? Mr. Lanes inquired as soon as Terrence was out of earshot. Not well, Justin admitted. We overheard the teachers talking about a ransom note. What does he want for a ransom? Mr. Lanes asked, his eyes growing wide. We don't know. Justin sighed. But he's gonna keep targeting students until he gets it. Outside of Capes. Here you go, Mr. Lane said, parking his car in front of the path to Capes. Y'all sure you want to walk by yourselves? We're sure, Terrence said firmly, hopping out of the car. Okay then, Mr. Lane said, his smile suddenly forced. Hopefully I'll see you soon. See you soon, Pop-Pop, Justin promised, rushing to catch up with his brother. Hey! Someone called from behind him. Justin! Justin turned to see Bailey walking towards him, followed by people he assumed were her older siblings. Hey, Bailey, he smiled. You just got back from your godparents' house? She asked, noticing his bags. No, he shook his head. We left Friday morning and spent the weekend with my grandfather. Fun, Bailey nodded. My family lives just outside of Captain, so we're walking back. Oh, she gave him an apologetic look. Sorry, let me introduce my siblings. This is Ashley, Julie, Thomas, and Teresa. Her siblings each waved as she said their names. Ashley, the oldest, looked the most like Bailey, with long blonde hair pulled back into a ponytail and green eyes identical to Bailey's. Julie was slightly shorter than Ashley and only a couple inches taller than Bailey. Her hair, blonde like her sister's, was in a pixie cut. Justin assumed that Thomas and Teresa were twins because they looked the most alike out of their siblings. They both had dark blonde hair, hazel eyes, and similar smirks. Hi, Justin said shyly. Did you enjoy your Thanksgiving, Justin? Julie asked. Yeah, Justin nodded. I got to spend some time with my old friends and my god-siblings and eat a lot of pecan pie. We had pecan pie too, Bailey said excitedly. We also had pizza 3 of the 6 nights we were home, which is funny because Daddy hates pizza. He likes it better than the food at Capes, Ashley pointed out. Who wouldn't when the food at Capes could kill you? Teresa joked. I think it's Mr. Crane, Thomas said seriously. He said it so seriously that Justin wouldn't have been able to tell it was a joke if Teresa hadn't smirked. I think he's trying to do away with his least favorite students. Thomas, don't joke, Ashley scolded. Yeah, you might be next, Teresa laughed. Ashley rolled her eyes, scanning her ID on the gate's keypad to let them onto campus. Well, I think Mr. Crane is too nice to kill students, Bailey said seriously as they approached the main building. I'll see you later, Justin, she said, following her sisters towards the girls' dorm. See ya, Justin said, making his way towards the boys' dorm. Simon was sitting on his bed when Justin entered the room. You're back, he said. Nah, this is just a hologram, Justin laughed. Oh, Simon nodded. Wow, impressive. Tell the real Justin I totally didn't pop my feet up on his bed. Ew, Justin giggled. Chapter 24. The Fight. Distinct Abilities was finally covering electric manipulation. Electric manipulation, like a lot of rare abilities, hasn't been seen in many years, Mrs. Strong announced to the class. So it's a treat to get to learn about it. Like other manipulation powers, electric manipulation is based on emotions. The better the user can control their emotions, the better they can control the ability. Justin, have you been able to use the ability at all? Justin had a sudden flashback to the blue light in his bathroom before he'd left for Capes. Kind of, he said. Okay, Mrs. Strong nodded encouragingly. How about we give it a try? She pulled an artificial candle out of the pocket of her cardigan and handed it to him. Try to focus on the candle and turn it on. She sat on the floor in front of him, her gaze focused on the plastic, unlit flame. Okay. He stared at the candle, wondering if he could achieve the task in record time. After 5 minutes, it seemed he couldn't. Sometimes nothing happens, Mrs. Strong said calmly, as if the 5 minutes he'd wasted were of no concern. You can try again if you want, or we can move on to how the ability works and can be defeated. I want to try again, Justin said, trying to ignore the quiver in his hands. Okay. Mrs. Strong nodded again. Justin looked at Eliza. She gave him a tiny nod and mouthed, "Focus." After one more look at the faux candle, Justin closed his eyes. He remembered playing football with his friends in the park. The fear he'd felt when exploring the tunnels, the way Eliza talked about her family, the laugh Rose emitted when Terrence, laughing just as hard, had put a dollop of whipped cream on her nose, the way Bailey blushed when they were talking. There were screams. Justin opened his eyes as the classroom lights flickered back on. Well, Mrs. Strong said, standing to her feet. We'll have to work on using the ability in a more controlled scale, but good job. Justin felt his face heat up and was sure it was a blotchy mess. The smirk Eliza gave him as she silently applauded only confirmed the suspicion. 3 days later. Find anything suspicious when you talk to Mr. Franklin's? Simon asked Justin in a hushed tone. Justin gave only the slightest shake of his head as he continued to pretend to listen to Luke's rant about something. Once again, Justin didn't know what the rant was about because he was only pretending to listen. That was uncalled for, a voice called from across the cafeteria. The room fell quiet as everyone turned to find the source of the outburst. It wasn't hard to find. A dark-haired girl was standing above a table, her posture tense as she glared at the boy across from her. The boy was facing away from Justin, but the girl's face was so livid he immediately felt bad for him. Then don't talk about my life as if you know me, the boy said calmly. The voice sounded familiar, but it was hard to tell who it was because he was on the other side of the room. It's not you! The girl yelled. Lola, Justin remembered. She's in art club. You're better than this, Terrence. Justin felt as if he'd been set on fire, then doused in ice water. You don't know me, Terrence said angrily. I do, Lola argued. Or at least I did. You're better than this. Leave. Terrence said it with such force that Justin himself almost got up to exit the room. Don't you use persuasion on me, Lola said, her voice seething with poison. 'Cause I'll just use it on you. Try me, Terrence demanded, standing to her height. Lola leaned towards him and said something inaudible to the listeners. Terrence stared at her defiantly for a second before crumpling to the floor. Justin was on his feet before even the teachers reached Terrence. You! Principal's office! Now! One of the teachers said to Lola. Lola turned and left without giving Terrence a second glance. Study hall. Mrs. Rodriguez? Eliza asked. Yes, dear, Mrs. Rodriguez said, glancing up from her computer. Eliza paused, frowning. Out of the three of them, Eliza was the best at playing innocent. She said it was people underestimating her, but Justin knew it was because she was good at hiding her emotions. Why did you and Mr. Rodriguez start working here? She cocked her head to the side and made her eyes wider, giving herself an innocent look. Mrs. Rodriguez tried to suppress a smile. Well, we wanted to find a place where we could work together and still have time to spend with our children, and Capes offered that. Our kids are grown now, but we still enjoy the free time. When did you start working here? Eliza asked. About... Her fingers twitched as she did the math. 25 years ago? Wow, Eliza nodded. Does that include any long breaks from work? Teachers would need to take long breaks if they were, leading riots, Simon said. So we need to ask the teachers if they took any long breaks. Oh, no, Miss Rodriguez laughed. Though we're not technically teachers, we enjoy the job. We usually wait until summer to take breaks. Last summer we went on a cruise to the Bahamas. Eliza nodded, listening to Miss Rodriguez as she began to retell the story. Art club. Justin approached Lola as soon as art ended. Hi, he said, grabbing her attention away from her friend. I'm Justin, Terrence's brother. I know who you are, Justin, she sighed, wincing slightly. I'm sorry about what I did to your brother. Thanks, Justin said, trying not to show his confusion. What did you do to him? We can both bend people to our will, Lola explained, so I convinced him to pass out. Why? Justin breathed. She studied his face for a second. Your brother and I were good friends, she shrugged, turning to inspect her painting. Recently, he's been making some choices I don't think are really him. Out of anger, I reacted poorly. What choices did he make? It's not my gossip to share, she said bluntly. I am sorry, though. He doesn't deserve a mild concussion, even if he was being a jerk. He's not always a jerk, Justin said quietly. I know, Lola sighed. That's why it makes me so sad when he acts like one. Your brother's a good person, Justin. He's just really lost right now. December 5th. Breakfast ends in 30 minutes, Mr. Franklin said to the last stragglers in the room. And happy birthday, Simon. Thank you. Simon smiled as Justin turned to give him an incredulous look. Why didn't you tell me today was your birthday? Justin asked. It's not a big deal, Simon shrugged. Of course it is, Justin said exasperatedly. I'll get you something, I promise. You don't have to, Simon said, blushing. Yeah, but I'm going to. Lunch. So he can come? Justin asked, double-checking for anxiety's sake. He can come, Mrs. Strong repeated, but just for today. Awesome! Justin turned to run down the hall, then stopped and turned back around. Thank you. Of course, Mrs. Strong said, as Justin raced back into the cafeteria. Where were you? Eliza asked as soon as Justin sat down at the table. In the hall, Justin said. He turned to Simon. I got you something. You didn't have to, Simon objected. Don't worry, it didn't cost me anything. Justin paused. That came out wrong. It's fine, Simon laughed, abandoning his fork in his excitement. What is it? I got you a one-time visit to the best class at Capes. Distinct abilities. Welcome, class, Miss Andromeda said, addressing the class as the students settled into their seats. As you can see, Simon will be joining us today for his birthday. Justin led a round of applause and happy birthdays as Simon blushed. Anyway, Mrs. Strong said as everyone quieted, today we will be taking a look at Eliza's ability to look into the future. Now, future seers can divine the future in many ways. One may have a prophetic dream, another could simply reach forward in their mind and grab a scene from the future. A third might simply see glimpses, like flashes of lightning from the future. She paused. Of course, there's also the matter of prophecies, but that's for another day. Several kids sighed. Justin would have been as disappointed if Eliza hadn't already told him a plethora of facts about prophecies. It's rare for one future seer to be able to divine the future using more than 2 methods, Mrs. Strong continued. However, it isn't unheard of. One hard thing about being a future seer is bringing the visions forth. Michael raised his hand. Yes, Mr. Hunt? Miss Andromeda nodded at him. So, what are you going to do to get Eliza to see something? He asked. Well, Mrs. Strong, she gestured to the older teacher, is going to try and prompt it out of Miss Thistle. Eliza, if you would please stand, Mrs. Strong requested. Eliza, who until that moment had kept her gaze stubbornly set on the floor, stood before Mrs. Strong in the middle of the circle. Mrs. Strong held out her ring-adorned hands for Eliza to take. You're a mind reader, correct? Mrs. Strong asked as Eliza gingerly placed her hands atop the palms. Eliza nodded, her hands quivering. She doesn't like reading someone's thoughts, Justin realized. Would you like to be the person intruding on someone's private thoughts? He argued with himself. Now, I'm going to recall an event, and I want you to try and see the picture I'm painting. Mrs. Strong gave Eliza's hands a gentle squeeze. The more details you see, the more likely you'll be able to divine the future. Eliza took a deep breath and nodded. This part won't be interesting to watch, Miss Andromeda warned the class, but if she has a vision, it will be the most interesting thing to happen in class all semester. And, Mrs. Strong added, the quieter you are, the sooner we get results. Everyone's whispers fell silent as they watched Mrs. Strong and Eliza with wide eyes. Mrs. Strong's eyelids fell closed and Eliza's gaze hardened as she tried to see whatever scene Miss Strong was playing for her in her mind. Justin leaned forward in his seat as Eliza's eyes slowly became a glassy bronze color, and her grip on Mrs. Strong's hands tightened. Miss Andromeda raised a hand, effectively silencing Kimba's question before she could even open her mouth. Eliza gasped, blinking the last of the bronze color out of her eyes. Mrs. Strong released Eliza's hands and grasped her elbows as Eliza slouched forward. I'm fine, Eliza said as Justin and Simon moved to help her, just a bit dizzy. That happens, Mrs. Strong nodded. Justin, could you help Eliza to her seat? Justin nodded and helped her walk to her chair. Well, Mrs. Strong said, addressing the bewildered students, as you can probably gather from Eliza's reaction, she's had some sort of vision. Eliza nodded, grabbing her water bottle from her bag. If it's nothing too personal, would you mind sharing with the class? Miss Andromeda asked. Eliza shrugged, taking a swig from her water bottle. It was more of a glimpse than a coherent scene. Eliza paused, thinking for a minute. But I think Sandwich Wednesday is going to be great this week. That night, the library. So, what did you really see? Justin asked as Hannah, one of Amber's friends, left the room. Eliza took her time finishing the sentence she was writing. Do you remember obstacle course day? She asked. Yeah, why? Justin frowned. After force fields, you saw someone in the hallway, she prompted. There were a lot of people in the hallway, Justin pointed out. Yeah, but one of them was a stranger, she urged. Justin frowned, trying to retrieve the hazy memory. Maybe, he said. Why? What did you see? I saw you remembering who you saw, she shrugged. But I don't know who I saw, Justin protested. But you will, Eliza insisted. You just have to try. Justin sighed. Fine. Good. Eliza sat up a little straighter. Now try and remember as much as you can. I'll try, he said, closing his eyes. Great job, class, Miss Drills said as she put out the rest of the fire. That was the best run I've seen any first-year class do. The bell rang and they left the room as quickly as their tired legs could go. Kyle was in front of him, Luke to his right, and Bailey to his left, her blonde curls bouncing as she walked beside him. They headed for the stairwell where someone was exiting. Justin tried to focus on his face, his brain buzzing from the effort. The stranger bumped into Kyle, drawing Justin's attention to him. He looked about 27, maybe older. His hair was dark blonde and mostly covered by a red hat. The few strands Justin could see were greasy. He was bulky and dressed in a white tee and khaki pants. Justin opened his eyes. I remembered! 3 weeks later. They had no idea who the guy could be. After reviewing their list of all staff at Capes and coming up empty, they resorted to looking among the seniors. Maybe one of them was absent? Simon suggested. 3 weeks in a row? Eliza said incredulously. We only get 50 minutes for lunch. That's not enough time to waste on going out to eat every day. Besides, there's no way he was a student, Justin said, arguing his point once again. He was a graduate at least. It was probably a disguise, Simon said for the 5th time that day. Who's to say he won't change his appearance again? It's too much hassle to have to change your appearance that many times, Eliza said, once again changing part of the stripe in her hair to prove her point. We'll have to check the logs of who comes on and off property to get any kind of new clue. We can do that? Justin frowned. Oh, probably, she shrugged. 3rd floor. We cause a distraction while Simon checks on the computer, right? Justin double-checked. Right, Eliza confirmed. Simon stopped just ahead of them. Shoot, he muttered. What? Justin whispered. Michael's in there, he whispered back, pointing towards Valerie's office. What do we do? Eliza asked. Before any of them could come up with an answer, Michael stepped out of the office. He brightened when he noticed them and made his way to where they stood in front of the stairwell. Hi, guys, he smiled. I was just doing some... He glanced behind him. Recon, he whispered. Recon? Simon frowned. Yeah, Michael continued to whisper. There's a group of students that are trying to investigate what's been going on. You know, the alleged poisoning. So what are you doing here? Eliza asked. Seeing if anyone who doesn't work here came in, he shrugged. They sent me because I'm a first year and unlikely to be suspected of being part of an investigation. Because they wouldn't take us seriously, Justin said slowly. Yeah, Michael smiled and nodded again. Anyway, it worked. Valerie told me that no one came or left in the past 2 months other than staff. Awesome. Eliza frowned at him. Bye. She turned and left. Wait, Michael called. Weren't you coming up here for something? Nope, just taking laps, Justin said jokingly, following Eliza down the stairs. Sorry, he heard Simon say as his footsteps followed his friends. Valerie would never have given us a real answer, Eliza said as they exited the building. We're too young to need a real answer, so why would she give it to us? So there's no real answer, Simon realized. There's no real answer. Justin agreed. Chapter 25. It's beginning to look a lot like fighting. Pencils down. Justin, despite his earlier confidence, was 99.9% sure that he had gotten at least half of the multiple choice questions wrong. If you think regular history is hard, you should try taking hero history. Remember, Mr. Franklin said, collecting their completed tests, there's always time next semester to raise your grade, and if you fail the test, you can do makeup work over break. He winked at Justin and grabbed his test. Lunch. I think I failed, Simon fretted. If you think you failed, then the rest of us are doomed, Jerry, one of Luke's friends, pointed out. You didn't fail, Simon. Eliza rolled her eyes. You're just overthinking it. Simon nodded distractedly, clearly not reassured, and picked at his sandwich. Guess what? Luke suddenly asked. What? Asked half the table. My sister's going to be visiting for the holidays, he announced, bouncing in his seat. She's super cool. We always go to our grandparents' house, Bailey said. And this year Israel, my oldest brother, is coming from San Francisco. 120 Two Bridges Street. A holly wreath greeted them as they arrived at the Willows household. Home again, Mr. Willows said. Jiggity jig, Justin and Terrence said, listlessly finishing the phrase. You're back! Will yelled, flinging open the front door. William, Mrs. Willows called from the kitchen. Let them into the house before you attack them. Will rolled his eyes and stepped back, gesturing down the hall. Welcome to our humble abode, he said lazily. How was your birthday? Justin asked as Terrence and Mr. Willows laughed. Amazing, Will smiled, his eyes lighting up. Tyler and Dylan spent the night and it was not amazing, Rose groaned as they entered the kitchen. They were so loud, Taylor, Natalie, and I couldn't hear ourselves think. You mean gossip? Will poked her in the shoulder. Stop, Rose complained. It was quite the night, Mr. Willows agreed, removing his glasses to run a hand over his eyes. I bet, Terrence nodded, making his way upstairs to his room. I brought you gifts, Justin said, pulling his backpack off his shoulder to get 2 packages out of it. Gimme, Will said, lunging for the gifts. William, Mrs. Willows called from the kitchen. This one's yours, Justin said, handing him a green-wrapped object. And this one's yours. He handed Rose the other gift. Thanks, Rose said, gingerly opening her present as Will tore into his. Oh, cool, Will said, ripping the plastic off his new game controller. Oh, wow. Rose smiled, holding up the new notebook and pens for her father to see. Thank you, Justin. You're welcome, and happy late birthday. We're going to dinner Saturday to celebrate as a family, Mrs. Willows said. We're going to Pizza Pimoli's, Will said, pumping his fist in the air. Pizza Pimoli's. 2 pepperoni pan pizzas, a Pimoli special, and an order of bacon-wrapped pepper poppers, their waiter said as his co-workers set their food on the table. It all looks wonderful, Miss Willows gushed, eyeing her Pimoli special, a salad and a calzone. Thank you, Alex. Of course. The waiter smiled, placing the pepper poppers on the table. Enjoy. The Willows Strikes family dug into their food as the table lapsed into silence. After wolfing down 3 slices, Will looked at his mother and announced, I want to go to the arcade. The rest of us are still eating, Mr. Willows said. But I'm done, Will pouted. I could go with him, Justin offered. You're only 2 years older than me, Will said, his face scrunched up in disgust. I should be able to go by myself. I can go with them, Terrence said, setting down his slice. You don't have to if you don't want to, Mrs. Willows said, trying to disguise her obvious relief. No, it's fine, Terrence insisted, pushing back his chair. I really don't mind. Let's go, Will shouted, jumping up. Inside voice, Mr. Willows said as Will led Justin and Terrence towards the arcade zone. One rule, Terrence said, pointing at Will. You're not allowed to spend more than an hour trying to get something out of the claw machine. 10 minutes tops. I'm not going through that jazz again. I don't want to play the claw game, Will chirped. I want to play the zombie killing game. Well, Terrence shrugged. Ma didn't say no. Awesome, Will yelled, running towards the game. If he gets nightmares, Ma will kill you, Justin told his brother. It's her money that's paying for the game. He shrugged again. Zombies! Will yelled, grabbing the plastic gun as the game began. For every zombie you kill, I'll give you one of my tickets, Terrence promised. But you don't have any tickets, Justin frowned. Not yet, Terrence agreed. But I'm a skee-ball wizard. I'm up to 6, Will announced as the game became eerily quiet. Bam! A zombie came out of nowhere with a loud bang. Justin jumped as the room went dark. What the? Terrence said as the lights flickered back on. Yes! Will cheered. The game didn't restart! Terrence gave Justin a wide-eyed glance. Was that you? He whispered. Justin continued to force himself to take deep breaths. I think so. Terrence swore. You should go back to the table, he said. I'll talk to you about this later, okay? Okay, Justin mumbled, trying not to take it personally. You're back soon, Mrs. Willows observed as Justin sat back down at the table. There wasn't anything I wanted to play, Justin lied half-heartedly. Mrs. Willows studied his face, but didn't reply. That night, the Willows' house. Justin, could you give us a minute? Mrs. Willows asked. He turned to Terrence, who gave him a solemn nod. Sure, Justin said, turning to head upstairs. I didn't want to, okay? Terrence's voice echoed upstairs. Why not? Mrs. Willow's voice was harder to hear from upstairs. Because, Terrence sounded exasperated. It doesn't feel like home anymore. Justin heard a door open and looked down the hall. Rose was standing in the doorway of her room. Is that why you sent Justin back to the table? Mrs. Willows asked. Because he isn't a part of your crowd? No, Ma, there was a reason for that. Well, it had better be a pretty darn good one, Mr. Willows said. I'm not doing this with you, Terrence said, his footsteps approaching the stairs. Justin and Rose hurried to close their doors. Justin sank onto his bed as Terrence's footsteps came to a stop. There was a knock and Terrence opened the door. You okay? Terrence asked, closing the door behind him. Me? Justin said incredulously. You're the one in trouble. Yeah, well, I was expecting a fight. Terrence shrugged, sitting next to his brother on the bed. You, however, caused a blackout in half a building. Justin sheepishly looked down at his hands. I don't know how I did it, he admitted. I think that game scared you a bit more than you let on, Terrence said, rubbing his thumb over the palm of his hand. I did that once. My friend Chris jumped out from behind a door and I almost set him on fire. So how do you keep yourself from doing stuff like that? Justin asked. Depends. Terrence paused. What are all your powers? Force fields, telekinesis, portals, and electric manipulation, Justin listed. Okay. Terrence nodded. He paused, taking a moment to think. For telekinesis, try using a little bit on little things each day. Obviously, make sure no one is around if you're not at school. Same thing with portals. Use a little every day. Make sure you're not seen. For force fields, set aside a day to practice so you don't glitch. And for electric manipulation, try subtly messing with electronics. Make something turn on a second early or a second late. Yeah, okay, Justin nodded. I can do that. Don't worry. Terrence put an arm around his brother. You're not going to be discovered. Everything's going to be okay. Justin didn't say anything. It wasn't himself he was worried about. Missouri. Grandma and Grandpa Willows were fantastic gift givers. It didn't matter if you were their kid, grandkid, adopted grandkid, mailman, or third grade science teacher. Each gift had the same amount of thought put into it. This one's for William. This is Rose's, Grandma Willows said, distributing the gifts. Here's Terrence's. This one's for Nathaniel and Willeen, and this one is Justin's. She winked as she handed Justin his package. Will had ripped into his gift before Justin could even decide how to open his. Cool, Will said, holding up his new cleats. Justin finished opening his new video games. Whoa, he gaped at Grandma and Grandpa Willows. Thank you. Of course, Grandma Willows smiled. Rose had already started reading the first book in her new box set as Will tried on his new shoes. Again, thank you so much, Terrence said as he began trying to set up his new laptop. No problem, Grandpa Willow said. We thought we could try and bribe you into visiting us some more. The adults chuckled as Terrence shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I think this needs to charge first, Terrence mumbled, releasing the power button. Let me try, Justin said. Terrence placed the laptop in his lap. Justin held a finger over the power button and focused. The screen flickered to life as the lights in the room dimmed by a fraction. Yikes, Mrs. Willows frowned. Must be about to rain if a cloud is covering that much of the sun so quickly. Good job, Terrence muttered to Justin under his breath. Christmas Day. After stockings were emptied, presents opened, and lunch was eaten, the Willow Strikes household took a trip to the St. Allen's Home for Mental Wellness. Well, if it isn't the Willows family! Sandra Willis, the owner of St. Allen's, greeted them. Merry Christmas! It's wonderful to see y'all! Merry Christmas, Sandra, Mrs. Willis smiled. We're here to see Gerald and Clarissa. Of course, Miss Willis nodded, typing something into the computer. They're in room 320. Thank you, Sandra, Mrs. Willis said, leading the way to the elevator. No problem, Miss Willis called after them. Justin was glad that Will was distracted by his new game as they crowded into the elevator. Will was notorious for pressing as many elevator buttons as he could before his parents noticed. Without Will's shenanigans, they made their way to the 3rd floor in silence. Mr. Strikes was sitting in a chair by the window, as he usually was when they entered the room. Mrs. Strikes was looking upward, her gaze fixed on the light fixture above. Clarissa, Mrs. Willow said, gently touching her friend on the arm. Mrs. Strikes jerked her head towards her. Willeen! She gasped. Gerald, it's Willeen! Mr. Strikes turned his head away from the window, but didn't look at any of them. Hey, Mama, Terrence said quietly. Hello, dear. She walked towards him and patted him on the arm. Lovely to see you. Justin set the tinfoil-covered tray they'd brought on the bedside table, as Will flopped into a nearby chair, eyes still glued to his game. Mr. Strikes muttered something from the corner. We brought cookies, Mrs. Willows announced as Mrs. Strikes made her way back towards her. Lemon sugar? Mrs. Strikes asked, her nails digging into Mrs. Willow's arm. Peanut butter, Rose said, unwrapping the tray to hand her one. Mrs. Strikes took the cookie and immediately dropped it. Hot, hot, she mumbled, rubbing her hand. Bad things, bad guy, hot, hot. Justin and Terrence shared a startled glance as Mrs. Willows bent down to pick up the cookie. That night. Well, that was a pleasant trip, Mrs. Willows remarked as they got home. She turned to Terrence. I'm sure you're glad you got to see your parents again. Yeah, he nodded. It was nice. But at the same time, it hurts, you know. Yeah, I know, Mrs. Willows sighed. Still, it was good for you to see them. Terrence stopped walking. Was it? Terrence, Mr. Willows cautioned him. I'm serious, Terrence objected. Justin, Rose, Will, upstairs, Mrs. Willows ordered. We need to talk with Terrence. Justin and the twins retreated upstairs. The twins crept into Rose's room as Justin closed the bathroom door to give the illusion that they weren't listening in before joining them. Is he in trouble? Will whispered. I don't know, Justin replied, leaning against the doorframe. I don't want to go visit them again for a while, Terrence said from downstairs. They're your parents, Mrs. Willows said gently. It's hard enough to be here, let alone having to go and watch them. Terrence paused. Watch them not remember. They're your family, Mr. Willows said. Well, maybe I don't want to see my family, Terrence shot back. Terrence Germain Strikes, Mrs. Willows said sternly. It's Christmas. Can we just finish the day on a high note and talk this through tomorrow? No! Terrence's shout made Rose jump. We've been dodging this for years. Let's get it out in the open. Why don't you want to visit? Mrs. Willows asked quietly. Because it makes me feel confined, Terrence said. Justin knew Terrence was rubbing his palm, a nervous tic he showed whenever he was anxious. Whenever I'm here, I'm reminded of the things I'd rather not think about on top of missing opportunities. Matt's dad has internships for kids our age that end up helping people get jobs when they graduate. That's what I was trying to secure over the summer. There was a silence as Terrence's words settled over the house. We're your guardians, Terrence, Mr. Willows finally said. "We love you, and we want to see you more than twice a year." "At the risk of my happiness?" Terrence asked. "Of my future? So we're just supposed to let you leech off your friends all summer?" Mr. Willows countered. "You'd be letting me work towards my future," Terrence sighed, "in a place where I could work on my school stuff." "That's fair," Mrs. Willows said softly. Justin sank onto the floor next to Rose. "He doesn't want to see us," Rose whispered. "That's not true," Justin whispered back. "Then why can't he come back?" she asked. Justin didn't reply. He didn't have an answer. Mr. Lanes's house. The twinkling from the lights on Mr. Lanes's tree snuck their way into the guest room through the cracks in the door. Even more of them danced through the door when Mr. Lanes pushed it open. "Terrence, can we talk?" he asked. "Sure," Terrence said, standing and following his grandfather into the living room. Justin sat up on the bed, wondering when the fighting would begin. To his surprise, there wasn't any. Instead, Terrence re-entered the room after 20 minutes and told Justin it was his turn. When Justin first saw the lights his grandfather had put up, he was surprised how much they reminded him of when they'd visited when they were little. Now they reminded him of a battle scene. The twinkling lights were reminiscent of bombs flashing all around the hero as he faced his next challenge. "Justin," Mr. Lane said as he motioned for him to join him on the couch. "You know that Terrence's fight with your godparents has nothing to do with you, right?" "Yeah," Justin shrugged. "Terrence is just experiencing a bit of FOMO, fear of missing out," Mr. Lanes explained. "He's worried that all his friends will forget him or that they'll have more time to learn how to use their abilities when he's trapped at home." Justin had the same concern himself. However, he'd forgotten his fear the second he'd gotten home. "It has nothing to do with you," Mr. Lanes repeated. "He'll probably be visiting home more often than you think." Chapter 26. Another piece of the puzzle. "I don't think he ever plans on coming home again," Justin sighed, leaning against the wall of the passageway. "That stinks." Eliza gave him a sympathetic look. "Wish Marion would do that." "Was she a complete monster over the break?" Justin smiled, grateful for the change of subject. "Of course," she groaned, grabbing a Buckeye, a peanut butter ball dipped in chocolate, that Miss Wilkins had sent with Simon. She got an array of designer beauty products, then spent hours complaining about the colors that clashed with her complexion. She also gave me one of her old curling irons as a gift. She bit into the Buckeye angrily. "That stinks." Simon frowned. "It's fine," Eliza shrugged. "I just need to figure out how to use it as a weapon." Neither Justin nor Simon had a reply for that. "My Christmas is great," Simon announced. "My brother Brian got me a remote control helicopter. It broke within an hour, but it was a great hour. And Claire, my sister, she painted me a picture." "What of?" Justin asked. "Well, she claims it's a portrait of me." He blushed. "But it looks like a big blob." "Accurate then," Justin smirked. Eliza let out a snort. "You can't just walk into things like that," she laughed. The next day. "Attention students," Mr. Whitaker's voice crackled over the PA system. "All trips to Orinthia and Cafton are suspended until further notice." Justin turned to Eliza. "There are trips to Orinthia and Cafton?" "Yeah," she shrugged. "That's where the older students are allowed to go when they leave campus." "Oh," he nodded. "Right." "Orinthia has had an outbreak of a virus," Mr. Whitaker continued. "Until the outbreak is under control, all outings are canceled." "It is flu season." Simon nodded knowingly. "Students will remain on campus unless collected by a parent or legal guardian," Mr. Whitaker finished. "And for today's quote, Glück ist nicht, verin ist dies genannt." There was a burst of static, and the room filled with frenzied chatter. "Why is everyone so upset?" Justin frowned. "This could be so much worse." People are dumb when it comes to privileges," Eliza declared, taking another bite of her French toast. Room 301. "Mr. Fields?" Justin knocked on the door. Yes? Mr. Fields looked up from where he sat at his desk. Justin! He gave him a bewildered look. What can I do for you? You'll be fine as long as you don't focus on why you're asking, Eliza said. Why can't you just do it? Simon frowned. Because he knows I can read minds, Eliza repeated irritatedly. I've tried, but he was too busy guarding his mind to give an honest answer. If someone who isn't one of his students asks, he won't have his guard up. He might betray something. Do you think students are being poisoned? Mr. Fields' hand slipped, crashing into an open drawer with a loud thud. My goodness! Mr. Fields rubbed his throbbing hands. Just right out with it, huh? Sorry. Justin blinked, tearing his attention away from Mr. Fields' hand, which was turning red. I was just thinking, you can read minds, so if anyone knew, it would be you. Mr. Fields allowed himself to smile at the flattery. Well, you're not wrong, he smiled. However, only the medical staff and Mr. Whitaker know the truth. I haven't been near any of the medical staff enough to read any of their minds, and Mr. Whitaker can block mind readers pretty well. I'm not going to try to hack into the mind of the man who employs me. Oh. Justin nodded slowly. So you don't think there's a supervillain here? No. Mr. Fields gave him a brilliant smile. Thank you, Justin said, bolting from the room before the thought could fully form. He lied, he said as soon as he arrived in the library. He thinks there's a villain here, too. So between him and the teachers you overheard on Halloween, Simon said, the general consensus is that Black Glycerin is hiding at the school. Which we already knew, Eliza sighed. Yeah. Simon's brow dipped into a frown. But if they know, how haven't they found him? There are only so many people on staff, and they won't let anyone on or off school property. How could they not have found him? Is it because they don't know about the passages? It's us, Justin realized. What? Eliza turned towards him. It's us, he repeated. They couldn't find anything in investigating the staff, so they're investigating us. Oh my gosh. Simon's mouth fell open. They're investigating us. That's smart, Eliza nodded. Or it would be if we didn't already know it wasn't a student. But they don't know that, Simon reminded her. Justin nodded, picturing the stranger's face in his head. What are they going to do when they realize it's not one of us? He wondered aloud. What are they going to do if they don't find him before the semester ends? Eliza countered. They'll assume they've scared him off, Simon said, leaning back in his chair. Even if students are still being poisoned? Justin asked. Well, no, Simon admitted. Then they'd be forced to realize they've missed something. Like we have, Eliza groaned. On the bright side, there haven't been any incidents in the cafeteria this semester, Justin said. Of course, they'd only been back in classes for a week, but still, the lack of incidents was something to celebrate. Don't jinx us, Eliza warned, pointing a threatening finger at him. Justin rolled his eyes and rapped his knuckles against the wooden table. Happy? He asked. Very, Eliza laughed. That night, dinner. Achoo! Kyle let out a guttural sneeze. Gross, Kyle, Annie grimaced. You could have gotten spit on my food. Sorry, Kyle sniffed. Do you think you should go to the nurses? Asked Sam, one of the first-year boys Justin didn't know as well. Probably, Kyle said, before a bout of coughing overtook him. I'll take you, Annie sighed, grabbing her brother by the arm and dragging him from the room. Poor Kyle, Bailey said, watching the twins leave. First his parents, now him. What happened to his parents? Eliza asked. They were sick over the break, Bailey said, picking at her food. How do you know that? Simon asked. Our parents are friends, Bailey explained. We would have gone to see them over the break if they weren't ill. How sick were they? Justin asked, remembering that morning's announcement. I don't know, Bailey shrugged. But it couldn't have been too bad if they let Annie and Kyle come back to Capes. The next day. It was another morning where Justin woke up too early because he rolled over on the flashlight he'd borrowed from Kyle. Why don't I just give it back? He groaned inwardly. He contemplated getting up and giving it to him. Oh, yeah, because I'm lazy, he recalled. Breakfast ends in an hour, Mr. Franklin announced, poking his head into the room. Crap, Justin sighed. I'm not up as early as I thought. Might as well return Kyle's flashlight. He grabbed the flashlight, rolled out of bed, and made his way towards Kyle's bed. The bed was made, and Kyle was nowhere to be seen. Justin frowned and made his way out of the room. He knocked on the door to Mr. Franklin's apartment. Have you seen Kyle? He asked as Mr. Franklin opened the door. Kyle's sick, Mr. Franklin said, pulling on his coat. So he's quarantining in the nurse's ward. Oh, Justin nodded. That's smart. I mean, poor Kyle, but at least he's okay. Mr. Franklin's nodded. It's surprising how smart the school staff can be. He smiled fondly. Feel lucky, Justin. If you were a normie, you'd be sick too. Hey, no school, Justin giggled. Don't celebrate too soon. Mr. Franklin shook his head, chuckling lightly. We'd probably send homework packets home for you. Boo, Justin pouted, making his way back to the dorm. Feel lucky, Justin. If you were a normie, you'd be sick too. Mr. Franklin's words echoed in his head. Chapter 27. Flu Season. Those who can see through walls are not the same as those with other seeing, Miss Andromeda said, pacing around the circle of chairs. I can see through walls, while Michael nodded from his chair, can look into his inner eye, so to speak, and see things happening in other places, sort of like a vision in real time. Eliza's eyebrows raised in surprise. Helpful, she muttered, eyeing Michael with particular interest. Oh my gosh, Justin thought, half panicked, half amused. She's going to kidnap him for his powers, and I'm going to go to jail as an accomplice. A cough brought Justin's mind back to the classroom. Now, for people with other seeing, Miss Andromeda continued, the ability gets unlocked. The first time the oblique can use the power, it's forced upon them and they have an episode. In the episode, they see a variety of different places. And after the episode, they can choose to look into their mind and see wherever they please. Most people have an episode when they're 14 or 15, so we won't be diving into that power more until around then. To Justin's surprise, Michael seemed more relieved than disheartened as he slumped down in his chair. Lunch, a week later. Is it just me, Simon said as they waited in line for food, or does the lunchroom seem emptier than usual? Huh. Justin scanned the room. That's weird. No, it's not, Eliza said, giving them a mystified look. More people have gotten sick, so they're staying in the nurse's ward. They are? Justin and Simon frowned. Yeah, Eliza gave a shrug. I heard a rumor that one of the third-year girls passed out during classes because she had a fever. Really? Justin breathed, his heart pounding. I mean, I don't know, Eliza admitted. It's just a rumor. Well, at the least they'll get better and school will go back to normal, Simon said optimistically. What's the worst that could happen? A week later. Attention students, Mr. Whitaker said over the PA system before first period. Due to the number of sick students residing in the nurses' ward, the room is over capacity and we will be combining the dorm rooms. Everyone will need to go to Valerie's office to get their new room assignments. Cloth facial coverings will be available for purchase in the cafeteria for those who would like filtered breathing, and hand sanitizing will be mandatory at the beginning and end of each class. See what you did, Eliza said to Simon. You jinxed us. Should have knocked on wood, Justin agreed, giving Simon a fake scowl. There isn't any wood in the cafeteria, Simon protested. Still, Eliza grumbled. The next morning. The second-year boys who weren't sick moved into the first year's dorm while theirs was being used as a sick ward for the first, second, and third-year boys who were sick. Mr. Goubeau looked over the sick students on the first floor while Mr. Franklin's was responsible for the healthy students, which seemed to be stressing him out. Good morning, Mr. Franklin said, walking into the room. His smile seemed to be stretched thin, and for the first time Justin noticed the worry lines that framed his eyes and mouth. Just a reminder that anyone who feels the tiniest bit unwell should go get checked by a doctor. You guys have an hour and a half for breakfast before the room needs to be disinfected. Lunch. It's weird to have people video calling into class when they're only one building away, Eliza commented. It's weirder that Miss Drills is trying to set up a live stream. Justin laughed. Hey, Simon said, sitting down across from them. Where'd you go? Justin asked. We couldn't find you after common sense class. I felt like I was going to throw up, Simon explained. I was in the bathroom. TMI, Eliza said, scrunching up her nose. You asked, Simon shrugged. Shouldn't you go get that checked out? Justin asked. Just in case. Simon nodded. You're probably right. That night. Simon's quarantined, Justin announced as he entered the passageway behind the library. Does he have the thing that Orinthia has? Eliza asked. No, he has a stomach virus, Justin replied, closing the entrance behind him. They're quarantining him so we don't have two diseases going around the school. He doesn't have the muscle ache thing? Eliza asked. Nope, Justin shook his head. Just nausea. Well, that's good. She paused. Not the being sick thing, but at least he'll get better quicker. That's how most stomach viruses are. Yeah, Justin shrugged. Hey! He remembered the text he'd gotten that morning. My grandfather says you and I can visit him. Mr. Whitaker agreed because Pop doesn't leave the house enough to get Orinthia's sickness. Cool, Eliza smiled. I mean, I'll need to get Mom's permission again, but she probably won't care as long as she thinks I have friends. Which you don't, Justin teased. You only have begrudging acquaintances. Nah, she shook her head. We're friends. Justin smiled. So I think we've missed two key details about black glycerin. What? Eliza asked, her eyes glittering with intrigue. Well, first off, he began, sitting down on the floor, what if black glycerin leaves Capes? How do we stop him then? It won't matter. Eliza sat beside him. The prophecy said it'll be up to one of the first years to stop him, so either we miss an opportunity now or we find an opportunity later. Might as well try now. What's number 2? We think he has transformation, right? Justin asked. That he can change his appearance? Right. Eliza nodded. Then why did he choose to look the same when attending protests and riots? Maybe it was just another disguise, she suggested. Then why that disguise? Justin countered. Why make himself stand out? Maybe it was to inspire his forces, Eliza replied, or scare his enemies. Number 3, Justin said, feeling a longer debate coming if he didn't change the subject. You said 2 things, Eliza protested. I thought of a third, he laughed. What if we go to Amber for answers? She's the only person who might give us a legitimate answer. The next day. Justin waited in the hall for the bell to ring. He knew it would be any second now because Eliza had worked out the exact minute he would need to leave in order to get from there to room 309 before class ended. Just as he began to doubt Eliza's planning skills, the bell went off. Amber! He called as she exited the room. Hey, Justin, she smiled. What's up? I need to ask you something, Justin said. Okay, what about? She frowned slightly. I want to know some things about the teacher's search for, he scanned the hallway, black glycerin. Her smile deepened. How about after dinner tonight, you and Eliza meet me in the gardens, she offered. I'll give y'all some answers then. Okay, he nodded, surprised by her quick response. Thank you. No problem. That night, the gardens. Amber strode into the centermost garden and nodded at Justin and Eliza. Hey, she said, sitting on the edge of the fountain's basin. Hey. Eliza nodded at her from where she sat in front of Justin. You two have some questions? Amber asked. Yeah, Justin nodded, nerves subsiding. Okay. Amber nodded again. Fire away. Wait, Eliza said, cutting off Justin's first question. How do we know we can trust you? Well, first off, Amber said, not missing a beat, my mom delivered the prophecy, which means she's neither likely to be affiliated with Black Glycerin, nor will she be the one to stop him. And secondly, I don't think Black Glycerin would want a teenager on his team. Fair enough, Eliza shrugged, turning back to Justin. Continue. Are the teachers searching the school for Black Glycerin? Justin asked. Of course, Amber nodded seriously. They've spent a lot of time stressing about the things they tell us not to worry about. Have they been investigating us? Justin continued. The students? Yes. Amber nodded. Crap. Eliza buried her head in her hands. We're probably their lead suspects. Oh, not at all, Amber hurried to say. My mother's been in charge of investigating you two. And Simon. How'd she get away with that? Justin asked, ignoring her correct assumption that Simon was also helping their investigation. Mr. Whitaker tried to split up the students randomly, she replied, but was willing to listen to Mom's suggestions. So, they don't think black glycerin is one of the teachers? Eliza asked, removing her head from her hands. I guess not, Amber shrugged. They're still keeping an eye on a couple of the teachers, but I'm not sure which ones. What are they going to do if they don't find him before the school year ends? Justin asked. I don't know. Amber blinked, betraying her surprise for the first time. But Mr. Whitaker seems to be under the impression he's too focused on attacking the school to even think of leaving anytime soon. Saturday. I can't believe 2 more kids get sick and you're leaving for a sleepover, Luke said incredulously. Yeah, I'm lucky. Justin smiled to himself. Justin, Mr. Franklin said from the doorway. Your grandfather's here. Mr. Lanes' house. So, kiddos, how's the investigation going? Mr. Lanes asked, handing out the food he'd ordered. Good, Justin said, unwrapping his sub. It's fine, Eliza agreed, except we don't have any new information. That's not completely true, Justin interrupted. Amber gave us some new information. But not enough to give us a new lead, Eliza argued. So nothing's changed? Mr. Lanes asked. Not really. No. They sighed. Later that night. Mr. Lanes' snores snuck their way into the guest room. I know I've probably already said this, Eliza said from her bed, but your grandfather's really cool. He is, Justin agreed. You're really lucky, Justin, she said quietly, moving to sit in a fetal position. My grandparents are just worse versions of my parents, status-obsessed with no status of their own. They dote over their eldest while their other children fight for attention. I'm sorry, Justin said. Thanks. She looked down at the bed. I just wish they'd pay more attention, especially now that Kara and April are home alone with them. They'll be okay without you, E, Justin said, testing out the nickname. They still have you, even if you're away. She didn't respond to the reassurance or the nickname. Besides, he continued, your parents still love you, even if it doesn't feel that way. And even if they didn't, other people do. I mean, you have a ton of friends at school, and you haven't even been there a year yet. The teachers adore you, and you have me and Simon. Eliza looked up and gave him a watery smile. Thanks, Justin. Anytime, he promised. Chapter 28. The Inflictor. 1 month later. Nothing new had been discovered even after Simon had gotten better. To make things worse, whatever virus had overtaken a majority of the school continued to spread. Some students were only sick for a couple of days, while others were sick for a month. Almost everyone, including the staff, had gotten it, including Eliza, who was sick for a week, and Kyle, who caught it 3 times. Capes had drastically changed since Justin had first arrived. More and more people started wearing masks in class. Hand washing had become mandatory before and after every class and meal, and there were fewer mixed ages and groups of people hanging out. The biggest change was in the cafeteria. Yes! Simon cheered. Pizza again! One of the 4th years behind them groaned. I wish we were having chicken nuggets, Eliza said longingly. Could be worse, Justin shrugged, grabbing a plate. Could be poisoned. Well, okay, yeah. Eliza rolled her eyes. When you put it that way, I have to feel grateful for having pizza the 3rd time this week. Also, we had chicken nuggets for lunch yesterday, Simon smirked. Yeah, Eliza sighed dreamily. Justin laughed. I hope we get tacos again. Luke said from in front of them. I wish we'd get Sandwich Wednesday back, Bailey said glumly. Or spaghetti night. If black glycerin isn't caught, we might never have spaghetti night again, Justin realized. If he isn't caught, a voice whispered back, the school might close. That night. Light on. There it goes. Justin beamed as the bathroom light turned on. And off. The bathroom light flickered. Then the room went dark. And back on, he muttered. Nothing happened. Justin was stuck in darkness. Okay, don't panic, he whispered to himself, reaching forward. He felt his way across the wall and to the counter. He moved his hands to the cabinets and made his way towards the door, hands creeping across the fake cabinets as he inched his way closer to the light shining under the door. Well, it's a good thing I'm not afraid of the dark, he thought. Otherwise, this would totally freak me out. His train of thought was lost as his fingers met a familiar abrasive surface. Justin blinked in surprise. The lights flickered on. The dorm entrance is in the bathroom. He frowned, vaguely surprised by the occurrence. He'd passed out before they'd opened the dorm entrances, and despite the fact that Eliza used the secret tunnels frequently, he'd never thought to ask where the entrance was. It's not curfew yet, he thought, but I probably shouldn't explore alone. He ran a hand over the panel. On the other hand, I have no reason not to. He crouched down and pushed against the panel, muscles straining as the panel popped into the cabinet. The fake front of the cabinet creaked open, revealing the dark entrance to the passages. Justin reached up and grabbed his electric toothbrush off the counter, glancing up at the overhead lights. He closed his eyes, unsure how long it would take for this to work, if it did at all. After a minute, he couldn't wait anymore and opened his eyes. The little light on his toothbrush was glowing brilliantly bright. Cool, he smiled, shining the light into the cubbyhole. The inside of the cabinet was small and dirty, and there were footholds directly across from the opening. Justin held the toothbrush in his mouth and crawled into the cupboard, the blue glow from his toothbrush the only source of light as the entrance closed behind him. Justin scooted forward to where the footholds were. He took the toothbrush from his mouth and scanned the area. There was a forked tunnel to his left, and when he looked up, he saw a path that made its way to the other dorms. Justin turned and looked down the forked tunnel. The tunnel to the main building was lit, but the other one leading to the fountain wasn't. Justin frowned. He wasn't sure how the light in the passages worked, but Simon had assumed that they were activated when someone pulled one of the levers. That's why the tunnel from the rec building to here wasn't lit. It didn't have a lever. But if that was the case, why was only one of the halls lit? Justin felt a pit in his stomach as he realized the answer. Someone's in the passages. He slid his toothbrush into his pocket, took a deep breath, and formed a shield over himself as he headed down the hallway. Be quiet, don't be seen, don't get caught, he thought to himself. At first, nothing seemed off. There weren't any obvious signs of someone using the passage, no sounds other than his own footsteps, and he didn't see anything in front of him. Nothing seemed to be any different from the last time he'd been in this passage. Then he heard a faint whisper and stopped dead in his tracks. He pressed himself against the wall and listened carefully. No, the whisper said. Of course I haven't. It isn't time yet. I'm waiting an hour, then planting the virus at Mr. Whitaker's office just as planned. I'm not stupid. Justin held his breath and snuck along the length of the wall. I'll be in and out, the lurker continued. It's not like it's my first time doing this. I've been doing this all year. Have some faith in me. Justin peeked around the corner, stopping long enough to see who was talking before jumping back into his hiding place. It's the guy I saw in the hallway, he realized, heart rate quickening. Breathe, he told himself. Remember the important details. An hour. Mr. Whitaker's office. The virus. I should go, he realized. We have a time and a place to catch him. He quietly, but quickly, made his way back to the bathroom. He could feel the stress trying to get to him as he climbed out of the cabinet, but he was too focused to care. He began to race out of the room, but stopped and put his toothbrush back on the counter before sprinting out of the room. Simon, he said as soon as he spotted him in the rec room. Do you remember where Eliza said she'd be? The movie room. Why? Simon blinked. I'll tell you when we find her. Justin ran out of the room with Simon hot on his heels. Justin was out of breath before they even entered the back building. The feeling only multiplied by 100 after he ran up 3 flights of stairs. With his lungs feeling like they'd been through a wood chipper, he peeked into the movie room and waved to get Eliza's attention. "What?" she asked as she closed the door behind her. "I found him," Justin panted. "He's in the passages. He's planning on releasing the virus in Mr. Whitaker's office in an hour." "What?" Simon gasped, eyes wide and eyebrows raised. "Slow down," Eliza ordered. "Are you sure it's him?" Not really," Justin said, forcing himself to breathe. "He's talking to someone, I think. He was talking about planting the virus in Mr. Whitaker's office." "So we know a time and a place where he'll be," Simon exclaimed. "Yeah," Justin nodded. "So do we tell an adult? And risk people knowing about the passages?" Eliza asked. "She doesn't have to know," Simon said, leading their way downstairs. "You can tell her you had a vision of the culprit coming out of a supply closet." "She?" Eliza frowned. "Mrs. Strong," the boy said, running across the lawn to the main building. Chapter 29. Capturing the Culprit. Mrs. Strong blinked in surprise. "And you know this because—" She paused. "Eliza had a vision," Justin said stupidly. "About an hour ago?" Eliza added. Mrs. Strong turned to Simon, who was brewing in guilty silence. She raised an eyebrow at him, but didn't ask him to confirm his friend's half-lies. "Well," she said, rising to her feet as she turned her gaze back to Justin and Eliza, "we better get going if we're going to catch him in time." She made her way out of the room, cardigan flowing behind her as she mounted the stairs, skipping 2 steps at a time. Mr. Whitaker's office. "So they believe he'll be here in 25 minutes?" Mr. Whitaker asked. "We know he will be," Eliza said loudly, glaring at him. Mr. Whitaker blinked at her, not at all intimidated by her outburst. Probably because he had met hundreds of angry, hormonal teenagers just like her before. "So, what's your plan?" he asked, turning back to Mrs. Strong. "You wait here," she started. "I wait in Valerie's office. I believe Mr. Crane is still here?" "He is as far as I know," Mr. Whitaker nodded. "He'll wait in Andromeda's office and try to flush him into our corridor." She motioned with her hands. "We make sure he doesn't evade capture." "What about us?" Justin asked. Mr. Whitaker startled at them, having obviously forgotten that he and Simon were there in the wake of Eliza's outburst. Mrs. Strong gave them a knowing smile. "The nurse's wing," she said pleasantly, "in case he runs that way." "Elizabeth," Mr. Whitaker frowned, "should we really let—" "Yes, Eric." She gave him a smile identical to the one she'd just given Justin and Simon. "These 3 can be trusted. I've foreseen it." Why is she lying? Justin wondered, trying not to show his confusion. Well, maybe she's not. "Very well," Mr. Whitaker nodded. "Go get Mr. Crane and tell him your plan. I'll escort these 3 to a good—" he glanced at them— "stakeout spot." Eliza gave a breathy snort. "Wonderful." Mrs. Strong spun around and fled from the room. Nurse's ward. "Are we really going to wait here?" Eliza whispered from behind the front desk. "No." Simon rolled his eyes from his spot behind the door. "But we're waiting until we're sure they won't come check on us first." "Is that what we're doing?" Justin frowned from behind the coat rack. Simon giggled. "Whatever." Eliza sighed, standing up and making her way to the door. She poked her head out of the room. "No sign of anyone," she whispered. "Well, maybe I got the time wrong." Justin shrugged. "I could be off by a couple minutes." Eliza shushed him. "Someone's coming," she mouthed. Footsteps sounded in the hall as the intruder made his way towards the office. Justin could hear his heartbeat quickening as the footsteps made their way up the stairs and into the hall. A click sounded in the hallway, and the footsteps stopped. Simon inclined his head to the door. Eliza gave him a nod and peeked out the door. "He stopped," she mouthed. "Why?" Justin frowned. "I don't know." Eliza peeked out the door again. "Guys!" Simon waved to get their attention. "What if he somehow avoids the teachers?" A door slammed from down the hall, Mr. Crane's attempt to flood the intruder into the office. The footsteps gave sound again, this time becoming louder, the pace quickening in the prowler's frightened state. Justin turned to his friends. "He's coming this way." He looked at Eliza. "Block the exit. Simon, watch my back." Eliza gave a sharp nod, the blue streak in her hair rippling red. Justin nodded back, took a deep breath, and stepped into the hall. "What the—" The intruder, the same one that Justin had remembered in his flashback, stared at him in shock. Justin used the stranger's surprise to his advantage. He enclosed his opposer in a force field as Eliza came out of the nurse's ward, a white bedsheet flapping behind her. Justin felt a bruising sensation in his left arm as the trespasser slammed his body against the shield. The shield turned a paler shade of blue, but held firm against the attack. "Hurry, please," Justin said as Eliza unfolded the sheet. Eliza threw the sheet past the culprit, using telekinesis to make it fly down the hall. The imposter broke free from the shield and ran down the hall as Justin collapsed to the floor. "I'm okay," Justin panted as Simon ran to his side. "Cover Eliza." Eliza spread her hands and the sheet expanded at the end of the hall, successfully blocking the intruder's path. The fiend glared at them over his shoulder before he tried to punch the sheet. The sheet, however, stood firm. He mumbled something to himself and held his hand up. He set his hand ablaze and pressed his palm to the sheet. "Guys!" Eliza's voice wavered as the sheet set on fire. "Mrs. Strong!" Justin called to the teacher. "No, no, no," Simon muttered, running towards the intruder as the hole in the fabric became big enough for him to escape through. Simon stopped halfway down the hall, held his arms out, and flipped his palms down. A green portal opened beneath the villain's feet, sending him falling into the void. Simon stared in shock at the feat he'd accomplished, then turned his hand's palm up. Another portal opened above the first one. The intruder fell out of the top portal right into the one on the floor, catching himself in a never-ending loop. Mrs. Strong emerged from the office and stared at the scene before her. Simon's hand stretched out, Justin on the floor, the intruder falling through the portals, the flaming sheet, and gave an airy laugh. "Marvelous!" She gave them a nod, eyes still laughing as the intruder tried to use a column of flames to stop his fall. "Mr. Whitaker," she called into the room behind her, "our helpers have caught the culprits." She walked over to where Justin lay on the floor and helped him stand. "You used a force field?" she asked. "Yeah," he nodded, still feeling a tad dizzy as he stood. Mr. Whitaker entered the hall and gave the room an open-mouthed stare. Eliza was opening and closing one of her hands, making the sheet pat the flames out. Mr. Whitaker blinked at her, then went to fetch Mr. Crane. "I'll take it from here, dear," Mrs. Strong said to Simon, touching him gently on the shoulder. "Just wait till he disappears through the floor and vanish the portal, and I'll open a new one. Then we'll do the same thing with the top one, okay?" Simon nodded, his eyes glued to the portals. The suspect disappeared into the void. Simon shook his left hand and the bottom portal vanished. Mrs. Strong waved a hand and a glowing purple portal took the vacant spot. "Are you sure you're okay?" Eliza whispered as Simon got rid of the top portal. "Not really," Justin admitted. "You?" "I think I'm okay," she shrugged. Mr. Whitaker re-entered the hall, followed by a slow-moving Mr. Crane. "Have you identified him?" Mr. Crane asked, eyeing the trespasser as he continued to fall. "I was waiting for the two of you." Mrs. Strong gave him a smile and said, "Eliza and Justin?" She turned to face them. "Would you two bring a mattress and some bandages?" "Yes, ma'am." They nodded, dashing into the nurse's ward. Justin grabbed a roll of cloth bandages from the nurse's desk and turned to Eliza. "This one," she declared. Justin shoved the bandages into his back pocket and stood at the foot of the bed. "I get the end, you get the front?" he suggested. "Sure." She held out a hand and lifted the head of the mattress using telekinesis. Justin placed a hand under his end of the bed and did the same. "Wonderful." Mrs. Strong smiled as they re-entered the hallway, her left hand still held aloft to maintain the portals. "I'm going to get rid of the bottom portal, and you're going to slide the mattress under the top portal." They dropped the mattress next to the portal on the floor. "Ready?" she asked. "Ready," the trio nodded. They watched as the intruder fell through the floor. Mrs. Strong's bracelets jingled as she vanished the portal with a wave of her hand. The mattress slid a little past its mark, but Simon straightened it as the offender fell from the ceiling one last time. "Ow!" the culprit exclaimed, grabbing his ribs. "Where are the bandages?" Mr. Whitaker asked as Mr. Crane grabbed the man by the arms. "Here." Justin tossed them to him. "I know you, don't I?" Mr. Whitaker asked as he began to tie up the villain's hands. I don't have to answer without a lawyer, the man said gruffly. We're not cops, son. Mr. Crane rolled his eyes. And the oblique Miranda laws allow us to have our own investigation before we hand you over to the authorities. Who are you? Mr. Whitaker asked. Bobby. Mrs. Strong nodded at the boy. Bobby Flaunt. You were expelled. Mr. Whitaker's eyes widened as he remembered. Eric, Mr. Crane interrupted, eyeing Justin, Eliza, and Simon. We should do this somewhere private? Mr. Whitaker followed his gaze and nodded. Right. Get up, he ordered Bobby, hoisting him to a kneeling position. Wait, we want to know what's going on, Eliza interjected. You'll find out one way or another. Mrs. Strong gave them a wink. The walls have ears. She followed the other teachers into the office and closed the door. The wall, Simon realized. He ran to the end of the hall and pressed an ear to the wall. We can hear the interrogation, he whispered loudly, motioning them over. Justin and Eliza raced to join him at the wall, falling silent as they listened in to another conversation they weren't supposed to hear. Chapter 30. The Interrogation. Lester, hold him in place, Mr. Whitaker ordered. I'm going to tie him to the chair. Elizabeth, guard the door. Justin had assumed Mr. Whitaker wasn't very authoritative because of how much he fumbled during morning announcements, but he seemed to know exactly what to say to get his team to listen to him. I wondered what happened to you after you attempted to blow up the dining hall, Mrs. Strong said to Bobby. I thought the government was supposed to keep an eye on scoundrels like you, Mr. Crane growled. I'm not a scoundrel, Bobby grunted. I'm a biochemist. Really? Mr. Whitaker asked. Because I thought attacking a school made you a domestic terrorist. Bobby didn't respond. A biochemist, Mrs. Strong said wonderingly. Do you work on vaccines? That would allow you access to the ingredients you'd need to make a virus. Bobby gave a low laugh. It's amazing how much people trust you when they think you're a genius. So you're the one who's been poisoning our students, Mr. Whitaker said. And you who spread the virus at the school? I'd originally planned to spread it in Arinthia, Bobby admitted. That way you couldn't source it back to me. Smart, Mrs. Strong said, complimenting his brain more than his villainy. Would have worked, too, if it wasn't for your little quarantine rule, Bobby sighed, remorsefully. Why, though? Mr. Whitaker asked. Why were you attacking our students? I was recruited to, Bobby said, no doubt smirking at their slowness. By who? Mr. Crane asked. You already know who, Bobby said. Black Glycerin, Mrs. Strong stated knowingly. Is he here? Mr. Whitaker asked sharply. Oh, most definitely, Bobby laughed. Who is he? Mr. Crane asked. I don't know, Bobby said slowly. How could you not know? Mr. Whitaker asked suspiciously. He has his disguises, Bobby said evasively. Doesn't trust anyone on his team to see who his undercover persona is. What's he doing here? Mrs. Strong asked. He has a grand purpose, Bobby monologued. First he reforms the school, then America, then the world. The world as we know it will be destroyed, and this building will stand as a monument to his achievement. It'll take a lot for him to reform Capes, let alone the world, Mr. Whitaker laughed darkly. All it takes is one generation, Bobby countered. One generation that's willing to open its eyes. Silence settled in the office as the teachers tried to think of what else they needed to know. How have you evaded us for so long? Mrs. Strong asked. I got to know the school very well in my 5 years as a student, he answered. I know all sorts of cubbyholes you've never discovered. I can get from here to the main gate and never enter the main hallway. The passages, Justin whispered. Eliza nodded her agreement. What will Black Glycerin do next? Mr. Whitaker asked. No clue, Bobby said remorsefully. He doesn't tell his people the whole plan, just what their role is. That's how he keeps his plan from falling apart. We should go, Justin said as the teachers ignored his monologue and began to call the Arinthian police. Right, Simon and Eliza agreed. The left fountain in front of Capes. What if Bobby is Black Glycerin? Simon wondered. He would have put up more of a fight, Justin pointed out. And Black Glycerin wouldn't have given up everything he knew, Eliza added. Unless that was Black Glycerin and he does know more. Simon gave an exasperated sigh. Police lights flashed from the Cape's gate. What if Black Glycerin breaks Bobby out of jail? Justin asked. He probably won't, Eliza replied, tugging on a strand of her hair as she watched the teachers escort Bobby to the police. I doubt Black Glycerin needs him for whatever part of his scheme is next. Justin watched as the police put cuffs on Bobby, who smirked the whole time. I wonder if he knows that, Justin thought out loud as the police put Bobby in the back of one of their cars. Mrs. Strong made her way towards them. Wonderful job tonight, children, she congratulated. That was the most impressive display of abilities I've ever seen from any of the first years. However, she sighed, glancing over her shoulder to where Mr. Whitaker and Mr. Crane stood talking to the cops. If we were to have another situation like this, I think it'd be best if you three try and stay out of harm's way. Justin nodded disheartedly. He'd known this was coming, but it didn't make it any harder to agree to. Don't worry, Mrs. Strong gave them a smile. You'll have plenty of time for hero work when you're older. Eliza nodded, still trying to get Mrs. Strong to take back her subtle reprimand as she stared at the teacher with puppy dog eyes. If Mrs. Strong noticed the look, she didn't acknowledge it. Instead, she gave them another smile before heading back to the main building. The trio watched in silence as the flickering halo of red and blue faded into the distance. Mr. Whitaker gave them a nod as he and Mr. Crane made their way back to their offices. What now? Simon asked. We find Black Glycerin. Eliza squared her shoulders. How? Simon frowned. We find the piece of the puzzle that we're missing. Justin shrugged. And that's who he's pretending to be, Eliza answered. Once we know where he's hiding, we can find where he's hiding and know who he's hiding as. Justin checked his phone. We should get to the dorms. It's almost curfew. Eliza nodded, scanning the school grounds. Meet me in the passage behind room 108 in an hour, she said. Why? Simon frowned. We deserve to celebrate, she smirked. Chapter 31. Heading home. The sun seemed as if it would never shine again. Terror and anxiety settled upon the students once more. Exam week was not to be trifled with. Grades will be sent home by mid-June, Mr. Quakes reminded his earth science class as he passed out their final exam. So don't stress out about your grade until then. Start when you're ready. Justin stared at the papers in front of him as if they were written in another language. He snuck a glance at his friends. Eliza was frowning at her paper, but had already circled 3 answers, and Simon was flying through his pages. Justin sighed and began to work through the questions. The next day, distinct abilities. Madeline and I just wanted to tell you how proud we are, Mrs. Strong said as everyone settled into the classroom. First-year distinct abilities doesn't have as much hands-on experience as the later years. Yet your class has been able to activate and control its abilities in some way. She winked at Eliza and Justin. Yes, Miss Andromeda nodded, and we are so excited to see what you can achieve next year. Now, for the last class of the year, Mrs. Strong continued, we're going to take a look at the last of Eliza's powers, her ability to change her appearance. Eliza nodded, running a hand through her hair, prompting her blue streak to turn green. Like that, Mrs. Strong gestured towards Eliza's highlight as it reverted back to its normal color. However, those with transformation have different tiers of how powerful they are, Miss Andromeda explained. Someone Eliza's age could change their hair or eye color. Someone a couple years older could choose to steal someone else's entire look. Some adults could change not only their identity, but someone else's as well. Justin audibly gasped, falling into a trance as the realization hit him. In fact, he was so deep in his trance that at first he didn't hear Mrs. Strong calling his name at the end of class. Justin? She repeated. Yes. He blinked his trance away. I gathered some information about your mother, she said, opening a folder to show him. Sorry it took so long. That's okay. Justin stared at the forms and pictures sitting inside the folder. It's mostly clippings from school newspapers, Mrs. Strong told him, along with old report cards and a couple entries from the diary I used to keep. Wow. Justin accepted the folder and blinked up at her. Thank you, Mrs. Strong. Anytime. She gave him a pat on the back. Justin hugged the folder to his chest and ran to the next class. Where were you? Bailey whispered as he slid into his seat. I had to talk to Mrs. Strong, he replied. Mrs. Drills hushed them. Bailey gave Justin an impish smile, and Justin suppressed a giggle, completely forgetting about the revelation he'd had. Departure day. The main building and front lawn were both jam-packed with students waiting to be taken back home. Justin, Eliza, and Simon had escaped to the one vacant spot on campus, the gardens. I forgot! Justin exclaimed as Eliza tried to find her headphones in her suitcase. Forgot what? Simon asked, jumping at his friend's outburst. Eliza, remember yesterday's distinct abilities class? Justin asked, ignoring Simon's question. Yeah, she frowned. What if someone is changing Black Glycerin's appearance for him? He asked. Eliza's eyes widened. Oh my gosh, she gasped. That's why he's at Capes. His minion is here, and he needs to keep an eye on them. Simon opened his mouth to say something, but was cut off as someone entered the garden. Great, there you are. Marion rolled her eyes at her sister. Mom's here, we're leaving. Eliza sighed. I'll be right there. Marion had already spun on her heel and was walking away. Eliza turned back to them, a sad look plastered on her face. I've got to go, she said lamely. They stared at her in silence. Well, Simon coughed. We'll see you next year? Right, Eliza nodded. I'll email you as soon as I get home, Justin promised. You better, Eliza waved her finger at him threateningly. Otherwise, I'll hunt you down in Tennessee and personally slap you. Justin laughed. Okay. We won't forget about you, Simon pointed out. Besides, we'll never find Black Glycerin without you. True. Eliza shouldered her bag. I should go. I'll see you next year. See you next year, Justin and Simon chorused as she turned to leave. Half an hour later. Simon's mom picked him up 10 minutes ago, and Justin, now alone, decided to go to the main building to see if anyone he knew was still there. Justin! Peyton called to him as he entered the building. Justin jolted for a split second, then walked over to where Peyton stood by the stairwell with Terrence and Matt. Heading back to the Willowses? Terrence asked. Yeah, Justin nodded. Heading to Matt's? Yep. Terrence feigned indifference, but the sparkle in his eyes gave away his excitement. But hey, you should join us at camp before next semester starts. Yeah! Matt gave Justin an over-enthusiastic nod. You'll also love next year at Capes. It's Bleak game season. What's Bleak game season? Justin frowned. Terrence and Matt shared an impish grin. You'll see, Peyton promised. I'll send Ma the camp information, Terrence continued, pulling out his phone. I think you'll really like it there. Okay. Justin frowned at Matt, who was watching him with a wild grin. Justin? Someone called from behind him. Justin turned. Miss Andromeda was standing in the doorway looking for him. Here, he waved at her. Your grandfather's here. 120 Two Bridges Street. Justin sat up from where he'd been crouching in his closet and patted the spot where his school books were hidden. Returning home reminded him of how dull normal life was compared to life at Capes. Even without the craziness of Black Glycerin, Capes was always alive. While Capes was constantly noisy, the Willows' house was quiet, other than the occasional outburst. Someone knocked on the door, sending Justin tumbling backward in surprise. Justin? Rose called from the hall. Just a second, he shouted, scrambling to get up. Mom wants to know if you want to go see a movie with us, Rose said, as Justin slammed his closet door shut. Justin opened the door to find Rose frowning. What were you doing? She asked. Reading, he shrugged. Mom says we're leaving in 10 minutes, Rose said, squinting at him from behind her glasses. You can't come if you're going to continue slamming books shut so loudly. Justin smiled. Noted. His phone buzzed from where it sat on his desk. He went to check it as Rose retreated back downstairs.
One new email. ET is here at mailonline.site. Did you hear the news about the oblique games? Eliza.
Justin, Mrs. Willows called from downstairs. If you're coming with us, you need to be getting ready. Coming, Ma, Justin replied. He glanced back at Eliza's email. Maybe regular life felt kind of boring, but Justin had a hunch that the feeling wouldn't last that long.